He also is, I think, contributing to the problem. We have two very strong-willed people each side of the Pacific, and neither one wants to really do a deal in the way one should do a deal.
So, Senator, there seems to be bipartisan support that there needs to be a real, frank dialogue between the China and the U.S. about trade. So that seems to have some support. Where do you think this may be going wrong here?
I think, frankly, I don't mean to sound political or partisan. I think part of the problem is President Trump's approach to this is a bit flawed. He is trying to shake China up by slapping these tariffs on it, and that, frankly, is not working. Our trade deficit now is much higher now than it was back when he took office. Second, it's not going to hit the heart of the problem. The heart of the problem clearly is the structural problems in China, forced technology transfers, subsidies, and the like. But to solve it, you need, frankly, somebody to sit down, a president who understands this, a president who really wants to solve it, and does so privately, not publicly, without using Twitter, and starts to build up trust and confidence with the Chinese. That hasn't happened.
Senator Baucus, because of news flow, we're going to have to keep it shorter today, and it's most regrettable, but I must touch upon Hong Kong. Senator McConnell has provided leadership, and with Senator Rubio of Florida, in making a statement about Hong Kong by our legislative branch. He succeeded in that with the Senate and the House waiting for the president's signature on a legislative effort to tell and send a message to Beijing, and for that matter to Carrie Lam in Hong Kong. Is this appropriate foreign diplomacy by our legislative branch?
Frankly, I have trouble with it. It's not going to help the protesters. Frankly, it will probably hurt the protesters, because if the United States does not give a special status to Hong Kong, or if it sanctions certain people in Hong Kong or China over human rights, that's going to set back the protesters. Second, it's going to also put another nail in the bipolar in the coffin that's driving the U.S. and China apart from each other. It's very much upset China. And third, it's not going to help us get a trade deal. Frankly, if I were in the Senate, I'd vote against it. This will hurt the protesters, not help them.
Senator Baucus, thank you so much. He's the 11th ambassador to China for the United States, and we're thrilled that he joined us today. We would have made that longer, folks, but we've got so much news flow here with the market opening up. A small weight to the tape, right on the screen, negative 22 on the Dow. The VIX 13.23, yields a little bit higher. And I guess of the 14 charts, Paul, that we could bring up right now, Schwab is taking out Ameritrade, and Schwab is in a jump condition from $44 out to $48 a share. That's well outside two standard deviations. Leap in Schwab. How does that happen? How does the acquirer go up as well? I didn't learn that in CFA 5.
Yeah, I haven't looked at the numbers here, but I'm guessing there's some earnings accretion to Schwab as the buyer here. But I think it kind of goes to the strategic value of this transaction, Tom, which is what we're hearing from analysts, is that, in a business where the commissions are, in many cases, zero, it comes about to scale and cost, your favorite word, scale, over your cost structure. So I think we're seeing, kind of the natural evolution of this business, which is a mature business and one that's facing severe price pressure, self-imposed on the part of Schwab, but certainly price pressure nonetheless.
And of course, it's percolating here. I love this phrase, significant antitrust issues.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't have the numbers in front of me. Can you say it's not even a duopoly between, let's call it Schwab trade,
yep,
and everybody else.
And everybody else. Yeah, I'm not sure of the market share. So maybe get Jen Rhee on from Bloomberg Intelligence. She covers all things antitrust here. But it's interesting. When they put it out in that initial press release, or just talking about what could be this deal coming down the pipe, analysts certainly suggesting that there could in fact be some big antitrust issues.
Well, I like how Bank of America puts it, quote, a bit tough. I don't know. I'm not sure what a bit tough means. And then just to go on to the others, Tiffany's not with that much of a move. I think it was gamed in that there would be a rebid. This is 120 up to 130 by LVMH, an 8% lift. And, people can figure out what they think Tiffany's is worth. But
yeah, it seems to be, on the part of Tiffany's, Tom, it seems to be they're just kind of haggling about price here. It looks like the folks at Tiffany, the board, the management has kind of said, okay, this deal is in the cards. It's just a question of economics here. So I think they've made that decision internally that going forward, they probably need to be part of a bigger enterprise.
There have been lows on Macy's back to August in the dearth of the summer. And there's a spike down the second week of October as well. We're nearing the spike down.
Yeah, that 52-week low, $14.11. We're here at $14.93. Stock's down 51% over the trailing 12 months. So, obviously,
I didn't know that.
Extraordinarily underperforming the market. And so, as Poonam Goyal just mentioned from Bloomberg Intelligence, there's a lot they need to do. They need to close a lot more stores. They need to slim down, and they need to drive, more that. Another one of your favorite terms, omni-channel.
Omni-channel. Oh, now you got me going. Scale I won't go with. What in God's name is omni-channel? You're the smart one here.
From what I thought, it's just use every means possible to get your products to consumers. So that's the bricks and mortars, that's the e-commerce, that's having these pop-up stores, that's anything you can do to get.
What did we say earlier? Re-commerce?
Re-commerce, yeah. I'm not sure what that one is. I'm going to go
We're re-commercing what, a dress?
I don't know. We're renting dressing?
Can you re-commerce bow ties? What a day. Thank you to our team in Beijing for the coverage from the Bloomberg New Economy Forum, and thank you to our team here on about 14 different stories. This is Bloomberg.
This is a Bloomberg Market Minute.
Now is the time for a little kindness. It's easy to feel overwhelmed these days, and everyone deserves a time out. Head to austria.info/kindness to tell us about someone who should win a holiday to Austria's beautiful ski slopes. With a pinch of luck, they'll be enjoying the snow, sun, and serenity of a winter paradise in no time. Woo! Visit austria.info/kindness now.
For the independent bookseller who found you that first edition. For the baker who brings the smell of freshly baked bread to your door.
And for the barista who never needs to ask your name.
We've all got a part to play.
Every little tap keeps your high street alive.
And helps your communities thrive.
So if you love where you live, shop small.
Shopping on your local high street can make a big difference. Shop small. Only by American Express.
At Lidl, we're big on those little reasons to be jolly. Like our delicious Favorina all butter mini Stollen bites for just $1.99. And 6 deluxe mince pies for just $1.35. Big on a Christmas you can believe in. Now that's big on quality and always Lidl on price. Subject to availability, selected stores, excludes NI.
World, 24 hours a day at Bloomberg.com, on the Bloomberg Business app, and at TikTok on Twitter. This is Bloomberg Radio. This is Bloomberg Markets with Lisa Abramowitz and Paul Sweeney.
Is there any bank right now in the U.S. that you think is a buy?
Do you think Chairman Powell has lost the market?
Jeff Bezos is no dope. What's the big ka-ching?
The big question, I think, for investors is free cash flow.
Breaking market news and insight from Bloomberg experts.
The U.S. tariffs actually hurt both China and the U.S.
Large strategics are looking to either buy or invest in innovation.
Soybeans and corn have been basically at or below the cost of production for about 4 or 5 years.
And what we see more bonds, more yield.
This is Bloomberg Markets with Lisa Abramowitz and Paul Sweeney on Bloomberg Radio.
Coming up, retail very much in focus today. We've got LVMH and Tiffany exploring talks, this is reportedly, to combine forces, plus Macy's shares plunge. We're going to talk about that. Plus, we're going to take a look at what trade tensions have meant for the U.S. economy. Right now, though, let's head over to our own Karen Moscow for a Bloomberg Business Flash. Karen.
All right, Lisa, thank you. And U.S. stocks are edging lower after losses in Europe and Asia as investors try to judge the outlook for a trade deal between the U.S. and China. We check the markets every 15 minutes throughout the trading day on Bloomberg. Right now, the S&P 500 is down about 0.2%, down 5 points at 3103. The Dow Jones Industrial Average down 0.2% or 46 points at 27,776. And the NASDAQ is down 0.1% or 11 points to 8515. The 10-year Treasury down 637 seconds yield 1.76%. Yield on the 2-year 1.59%. NYMEX crude oil up 1.5% or 83 cents at 57.83 a barrel. COMEX gold down 0.4% or $6 to 14.6830 an ounce. The euro 1.1080 against the dollar. The yen is at 108.59. We are watching some economic news crossing the Bloomberg. Sales of previously owned U.S. homes increasing in October as buyers responded to falling mortgage rates. Contract closings rising to 5.46 million at an annual rate, up 1.9% from September. Filings for U.S. unemployment benefits held last week at the highest level since June, bucking forecasts for a decline and suggesting the labor market may be softer than previously thought. And a gauge of U.S. consumer sentiment improved for the first time in 5 weeks, with the Bloomberg Consumer Comfort Index rising to 59.1 the week ending November 17th from 58 in the prior period. That's reflecting better assessments of the U.S. economy, personal finances, and the buying climate. And that's a Bloomberg Business Flash. Lisa and Paul.
Karen Moscow, thank you so much. Market Drivers is brought to you by New Jersey Institute of Technology, ranked 53rd in the nation out of more than 4,000 universities for mid-career earnings of its graduates. Learn more at njit.edu. As Karen was just reporting, kind of a soft opening to the market, a little bit of red on the screen. Dave Wilson, Bloomberg Stocks Editor, what are you looking at underneath the surface there?
Well, one area that kind of jumps out is chip equipment makers. I mean, I know there's so much focus on discount brokerage in light of Schwab's prospective deal for TD Ameritrade, but there was a call out of UBS, and why it matters is, you know, if the chip equipment makers are doing well or not, it tells you something about the chip industry, about capital spending, all those kinds of things. And they went and cut 3 of the biggest U.S. Equipment producers to sell. We're talking about Applied Materials, KLA, and Lam Research. And KLA had a buy rating and it went down to sell. And those stocks are among the worst performers on the day in the S&P 500. KLA with the second biggest drop. It's lower by more than 5%. The only one down more is E-Trade that is being affected by this potential Schwab TD Ameritrade deal. And Applied Materials and Lam Research both down more than 2%.
What's the logic behind UBS's call?
Well, basically, they're figuring that spending's going to slow over the next several quarters.
Corporate spending.
Particularly chip makers. That's what we're talking about.
Right, but chip maker spending is going to slow.
Right, that they're not going to be as quick to invest in new equipment. Took a look at their report. They're anticipating that once this year's numbers are in, that they'll be down 10% from last year. And then, you know, they talk about a run rate in terms of where growth is going or not. And the short answer is not. For, you know, the coming year, they're looking at, you know, an increase of 6%. But, you know, it's not all that great in relative terms for the industry itself. What they're talking about is that the run rate's going to slow. And so that's bad news for these equipment producers. And so you have to wonder what happens down the line, especially, you know, with trade issues. And they certainly do bring those up in the research.
It's interesting, you know, when you talk about the chip makers, it really goes to kind of the foundations of the whole technology stack, the technology spending across, you know, across a whole host of hardware sectors of the technology space. And that's been one of the big drivers of this market, Dave, as you well know, the tech, NASDAQ, the FANG stocks.
Particularly the equipment companies. I mean, you look across the board, Applied Materials, even with today's loss, up 78% this year. KLA up 84%. Lam Research, doggone near doubled, up 97%. So it really does go to show you that the group's been at the forefront. So any kind of retreat like we saw out of UBS gets people's attention just because the stocks have done so well.
All right. So you mentioned some of the other brokerages, moving gears a little bit, the fallout from the Ameritrade TD Securities tie-up that we are getting reported, although no word from the companies.
True.
What's been the fallout here?
Well, I mean, what it comes down to, think back to the beginning of last month when Schwab decided that they were going to drop commissions entirely on trades of U.S. shares and exchange-traded funds. I mean, it's really coming home to roost in terms of, the need to consolidate it. It's kind of indicative of where the business has been going for the last several years. And as a result of that, now you've got Schwab in a position where they figure that, expansion is the way to deal with the loss of revenue. So, we may see this play out in more industries if there's an anticipation that economic growth is going to slow. But, in this particular case, I mean, we've seen things kind of ratchet down in terms of what you can earn from trading for some time. And so with the discount brokers in particular, we're seeing the potential consolidation here.
And just for people who missed the headline, Schwab is nearing a deal to buy TD Ameritrade. This, according to a person who spoke with Bloomberg News, originally reported by CNBC. TD Ameritrade shares up about 17% in the initial trading. Schwab did fall, although came back its earlier lows, Paul.
Yeah, exactly. And I noticed that the earlier, I guess in July, the Chief Executive Officer, Tim Hockey, for TD Ameritrade, saying that he would be leaving in February 2020. So I guess that started to perk up some speculation that, there might be room for change there.
Yeah, it did. And again, if you just take a look at relative performance, I mean, TD Ameritrade, even with today's surge, is still down for the year. Just 2%, but it's down. When you look at Schwab with today's gain, it's up 16%. So, it kind of shows you that, Schwab has kind of become, the strong man in this business to some extent. Interactive Brokers, our sponsor here at Bloomberg Radio, down 14% for the year, and initially rose in response to this deal, interestingly enough. Now it's off 0.6%, but E-Trade really taking the biggest hit, lower by almost 7%, biggest decline in the S&P 500 right now.
I guess this is good for consumers, driving down the cost of trading and trying to take costs out of the system. So, I guess for the company's perspective, you just got to get scale in a business where your revenue stream, one of your revenue streams from trading is, kind of going to zero a little bit.
Yeah, exactly. And really, I mean, how do you deal with that? You bring in more business, you cut costs where you can, and clearly this looks like what's behind the potential deal.
Dave Wilson, Bloomberg Stocks Editor, thank you so much for being with us. He is joining us in our Interactive Broker Studios. We are seeing a bit of discussion on the trade talks, a little push-pull here, I would say, that basically there does seem to be progress getting made on the discussions between the U.S. and China. But then Hong Kong, with President Trump, about to sign this bill that was passed by both the Senate and the House of Representatives, basically saying we stand by Hong Kong. And, hey, China, guys, back off. Yep. China coming out, Xi Jinping not being too happy about that. So, does that sort of tip the scales? At this point, it doesn't seem like it. On the other hand, it does seem like there is a precipice here.
It is, and we just had Max Baucus, former U.S. ambassador to China and former U.S. senator, come on saying he believes, he said he would vote against this resolution. He thinks it is not good for the folks in Hong Kong. It is not good for the trade agreement. So it just, there's definitely, it seems to be bipartisan support at this point, but interesting, Max Baucus had a different view.
Indeed, and we're going to talk more about retail and some of the other stories coming up. Right now, though, let's head to our 99.1 studios in Washington, D.C. We've got Nathan Hager with World and National Headlines. Nathan.
Lisa, the House Intelligence Committee is concluding its week of impeachment hearings with a Russia expert who served on the National Security Council and the political counselor at the U.S. Embassy in Ukraine. Let's get the latest live from Bloomberg's Irv Chapman in Washington. Irv.
Nathan, David Holmes was the embassy official who went to lunch with Ambassador Gordon Sondland and overheard the phone call in which President Trump inquired about the investigations he wanted. And Sondland assured him that Ukraine's President Zelensky would do anything he asked.
I then took the opportunity to ask Ambassador Sondland for his candid impression of the president's views on Ukraine. In particular, I asked Ambassador Sondland if it was true that the president did not give an expletive about Ukraine. And Ambassador Sondland stated that the president only cares about big stuff that benefits the president, like the Biden investigation that Mr. Giuliani was pushing.
Holmes described with evident bitterness the campaign to replace the U.S. ambassador to Ukraine and thwart President Zelensky's desire for a White House meeting that would demonstrate U.S. backing against Russia. Nathan?
Bloomberg's Irv Chapman with us in Washington. And Bloomberg Terminal customers, as always, can watch the impeachment hearings at Live Go. As these hearings go on, President Trump is planning to have lunch with some key Republican senators. Politico reports they include Maine's Susan Collins and Mitt Romney of Utah. Now, Romney has said in the past it would be wrong and appalling for the president to ask foreign countries for dirt on political rivals. As for today's lunch, Romney says he wasn't expecting an invitation, but is happy to hear what the president wants to talk about. Global news on air and at TikTok, on Twitter, powered by more than 2,700 journalists and analysts in more than 120 countries. This is Bloomberg.
Intellectual property, one of the most valuable things we market in Asia.
I understand you're trying to rival the likes of San Francisco, New York.
We have our own brand of intellectual property.
Let's focus first on this U.S.-China trade story.
Find out why it's so valuable.
Do you need to see substance in an agreement or just that they stop shouting at each other?
Bloomberg Daybreak Asia, tonight at 6 Eastern on Bloomberg Radio, the Bloomberg Business app, and BloombergRadio.com. Bloomberg, the world is listening.
My mother was always very active and independent, and she was familiar with her neighborhood. But one day, she stopped at the stop sign for much longer than usual. She wasn't even really sure where she was at.
It's important for you to talk to someone about it. I felt so much better after my son told me, Mom, we'll figure it out.
When something feels different, it could be Alzheimer's. Now is the time to talk. Visit alz.org/ourstories to learn more. A message from the Alzheimer's Association and the Ad Council.
The Bloomberg Business of Sports podcast.
How did the Yankees become this mega valuable team?
Where the money is flowing inside sports around the globe.
From the marketing perspective, where are the dollars spent?
From union heads to team owners, Scott Soshnick and Michael Barr speak to the names that power this multi-billion-dollar industry.
Boston Red Sox CEO Sam Kennedy.
National Hockey League Commissioner Gary Bettman.
Bloomberg Business of Sports. Listen today on Bloomberg.com, the Bloomberg Business app, or subscribe on Apple Podcasts.
My name is Hunter Hayes. I know myself, and I know my buzzed warning signs. One shot is about knowing my limits, or not necessarily knowing my limits.
I start with one shot to have a good time.
One of the signs that I'm starting to feel a little buzz is when I start solving not only my own problems, but the entire world's problems. When I know I'm going out, I know I'm going to start with calling for a ride. Buzz driving is drunk driving. A message brought to you by NHTSA and the Ad Council.
'Tis the season to be hunched over your laptop. Not on our watch. In real life, you can fill your senses and your baskets. Feel all the sights, sounds, lols, and OMGs. Wear laughing emojis on actual smiley faces. Batteries running low. Take the kids to Santa's Grotto. In real life, you can find just the right present using the most advanced search engine in the world. Your eyes. We heart in real life. Brent Cross, London. Free parking for all sleighs and cars.
I love Black Friday. Busy shops, crazy people, average deals. It's so much fun.
Said no one ever. So be savvy and do Black Friday the easy way with Smarty. Grab a huge 100 gig data SIM for just £17 a month on the Mega Plan. And with no credit checks, speed restrictions or contracts tying you down, you can kick back with the best Black Friday deal around. Now that's Smarty. Search Smarty Mobile to find out more, but hurry, as this deal won't be around for long. See smarty.co.uk for terms.
For the independent bookseller who found you that first edition. For the baker who brings the smell of freshly baked bread to your door.
And for the barista who never needs to ask your name.
We've all got a part to play. Every little tap keeps your high street alive.
And helps your communities thrive.
So if you love where you live, shop small.
Shopping on your local high street can make a big difference. Shop small. Only by American Express.
At Lidl, we're big on all those Christmas parties. The season to be jolly. Try our Party Time Indian snack selection for only $2.99. And our Party Time mac and cheese bites for just $1.19. Big on a Christmas you can believe in. Now that's big on quality and always Lidl on price. Subject to availability, selected stores excludes an eye.
If you're planning on driving this weekend, expect delays on the A406 North Circular Road. There'll be road closures between Tottenham and Edmonton from 10 p.m. on Friday the 22nd of November to 5 a.m. on Monday the 25th of November, while we carry out essential maintenance and repairs. All roads in the surrounding area will be extremely busy, so please allow more time for your journey and expect delays in the area. Plan ahead and check alternative routes at tfl.gov.uk. To the Mayor of London and TfL, every journey matters.
Christmas is such a magical time of year for little ones. But why should the big kids miss out? This season, take the family to Santa's Wonderlab at West London Audi. You get to test drive the latest Audi models, and the children get to test drive the latest toys with Santa. There's something for the whole family. Visit santaswonderlab.com to find out more about how to register for your place at Santa's Wonderlab this Christmas.
From ESPN and the award-winning producers of The Sterling Affairs comes the latest season of 30 for 30 podcasts. 4 brand new stories of espionage.
He wanted this team to be the Barcelona of women's basketball.
Resilience.
I started to scream. I tried to get away.
Corruption.
It's the culture of win at all costs.
And rebirth.
How will we ever rebuild it?
30 for 30 Podcasts, Season 6. Listen now to 30 for 30 Podcasts on TuneIn.
When you're not listening to your team, take it to the end zone, the rim, or the net. Keep up with the biggest moments in sports by following TuneIn on social media.
Block, Cook into the end zone for the touchdown.
From reminders of the live top games to tips of the best sports stations and podcasts.
Welcome to Undisputed. We are live from Los Angeles. I'm Jenny Taft here with Skip
Follow
Bayless.
at TuneIn on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram to get the most out of TuneIn.
Introducing a new podcast, ESPN Daily. When you want to go beyond your feed, when you want to get inside the score, when you want to get behind the highlight, there's ESPN Daily. Go deeper into the stories of the moment. Get the exclusive access and insider perspective that only ESPN can give you. ESPN Daily, hosted by me, Mina Kimes. Listen and favorite ESPN Daily on TuneIn.
Headlines and breaking news 24 hours a day at Bloomberg.com, the Bloomberg Business app, and at TikTok on Twitter. This is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
Stocks head down after losses in Europe and Asia. This all as investors are trying to judge the outlook for a trade deal between the USA and China. We check the markets every 15 minutes throughout the trading day on Bloomberg Radio. S&P 500 is down 0.3%, down 10. The Dow's down 0.3%, down 78. And the NASDAQ is down 0.3%, down 24. The 10-year is down 7/30 seconds, the yield 1.76%. What's up? West Texas Intermediate crude's up 1.5% at 57.87 a barrel. COMEX gold's down 0.6% at 14.66 even an ounce. The dollar yen 108.61. The euro $1.1074. The British pound $1.2939. Charles Schwab is nearing a deal to buy TD Ameritrade, reshaping the online brokerage sector that's seen fierce competition. Right now, Schwab is up 7.5%. TD's up 16%. That's a Bloomberg Business Flash. I'm Greg Jarrett.
You're listening to Bloomberg Markets with Lisa Abramowitz and Paul Sweeney on Bloomberg Radio.
We had some economic data today, existing home sales, initial jobless claims. Each came in just, I would say, slightly weaker than expected. Nothing major, but again, on the margin, a little bit weaker. To kind of break down what we're seeing on the economic front, we welcome our good friend Danielle DiMartino Booth. She's a Chief Executive Officer and Chief Strategist at Quill Intelligence. She joins us here in our Bloomberg Interactive Broker studio. So, Danielle, on the margin, what's some of the recent data telling you?
Well, there's good and there's bad. The Powell printing press is powerful. And I think that it is the Fed's, not QE, that is a much greater force in propelling the nascent recovery that we're seeing on the industrial side. Empire State, Philly Fed this morning, we're seeing future inventories rise appreciably. That tends to be a precursor to ISM new orders increasing. That's going to be very well received by markets because they're going to say, okay, we've escaped the third industrial recession of the current longest expansion in U.S. history. The flip side are some of the things that we're seeing coming out of initial jobless claims. Continuing jobless claims, we're falling very closely because if continuing jobless claims stop falling, the improvement in the labor market has been exhausted. So we've seen 7 straight weeks of that stagnation. Continuing jobless claims are up 0.7%. So pretty hard to see on a graph, but nevertheless, they're up for the first time since December of 2009. And for example, in this morning's existing home sales report, we saw homes priced under $250,000. We saw those sales fall. That's not what Jay Powell wants. Jay Powell wants for his transmission mechanism of lower interest rates to work for the people who need to buy homes.
So this doesn't all sound absolutely dreadful when it comes to the consumer, because we still are near historic lows and very full of employment. What is the practical takeaway from the bottoming out, or sort of the hitting of a sort of peak, perhaps, in the consumer?
Yeah, I think what the message is, and again, initial jobless claims have surprised to the upside now for 2 weeks running, 227. These are the highest levels we've seen since early this year. But I think that the takeaway is that we have had the most extraordinary expansion in U.S. labor market history. I mean, it blows away prior cycles by a mile. And a lot of that has had to do with the skills mismatch and how very valuable any employee has been to companies, and how hard they've held on to them through these ups and downs in the economy. So for us to see companies finally relenting and pushing through the beginnings of layoffs, I think is concerning, because companies have been so remiss to let go of their employees.
So just looking at the Fed funds futures rate after the Fed minutes were released yesterday, looks like the market's discounting a rate cut maybe sometime mid to third quarter next year.
September 2020.
Right. Do you think the Fed can wait that long based upon maybe some of the rolling over a little bit?
You know, I think that and we have to bear in mind, John Williams is the vice chair of the Federal Open Market Committee, so he's technically second in command, not Rich Clarida, who's vice chair of the board. And his comments, I felt a few days ago, were very dovish in nature, and I think that the market may be over-discounting how data dependent that the Fed is going to be, and whether or not they will be forced. And we have no idea what December is going to bring in terms of the repo market and liquidity issues and year-end window dressing at banks. We don't know how much disruption there might be going into the new year, and whether or not that September 2020 is realistic.
So, when you came in here, we were talking about this bottoming out and some of the data having to do with the consumer, some signs of brightness in the industrial sector. Right. And you said that you see a shift coming where the consumer, which has powered the economic expansion, is going to start deteriorating in terms of its economic condition. And we're going to see a resurgence in industrials. Can you explain a little bit further?
And I'm not certain how strong it's going to be. If you look, for example, at manufacturing powerhouse Germany, it did not slip into recession. And I think Germany is a great barometer for our industrial sector, because we've been lagging. We've been following what happens in Germany. And what we're anticipating right now is stagnation overseas, not a major rebound. So, we might rebuild stockpiles in the coming months. That's going to be, again, seem very, very favorably. The market's favorite leading indicator is ISM new orders. And one of the reasons markets got a little shaky was because we had 3 months in a row of negative prints on ISM new orders. That popping back above that 50 line between expansion and contraction, I think would be seen as favorable. I want to see how much momentum it's going to have going into the year, whether there's going to be follow through, because we're not seeing coming out of Detroit what we would prefer with the U.S. automakers. That's going to count next year.
Danielle DiMartino Booth, thank you.
Thank you.
Really smart. Chief Executive Officer and Chief Strategist at Quill Intelligence, also a former Fed researcher and employee over in Dallas. So it's always great to get the perspective. And I love that about the shifting away from the consumer more toward industrial. Right now, let's get an impeachment update. Nathan Hager with World and National Headlines.
Lisa, this final hearing in the House Intelligence Committee features 2 witnesses. Fiona Hill, the former Russia advisor who said in a closed-door deposition that former National Security Advisor John Bolton called Rudy Giuliani a hand grenade, and David Holmes, the U.S. Embassy staffer in Kiev, who says he overheard President Trump talking with EU Ambassador Gordon Sondland about investigations in a phone call the day after the president's conversation with Ukrainian President Zelensky, the call that is at the center of this impeachment probe. And Holmes talked about Sondland in his opening statement.
He made clear that he had direct and frequent access to President Trump and Chief of Staff Mick Mulvaney, and portrayed himself as the conduit to the president and Mr. Mulvaney for this group.
In her opening remarks, Hill is warning lawmakers not to believe that Ukraine interfered in the 2016 election. She calls it a fictional narrative spread by Russian security services, a narrative she says is already being used to gear up for 2020 interference by Russia. We've got a live report from Capitol Hill coming up in 15 minutes, and Bloomberg Terminal customers can watch all the public impeachment hearings at Live Go on the terminal. I'm Nathan Hager. This is Bloomberg.
This is a Bloomberg Market Minute. Stocks are edging lower this session as investors are weighing the latest trade developments. That includes a bill from Congress supporting Hong Kong protesters that could complicate a deal with China. Macy's shares dropping after the retailer cut its annual profit outlook for the second time this year, adding to worries that retailers could suffer a weak holiday season. Same-store sales, that's a key metric for retailers, fell 3.5% in the third quarter. Sanofi is mulling options for its consumer health business, which makes Allegra allergy tablets and Rolaids antacids. Bloomberg has learned that it could be worth as much as $30 billion. No decisions have been made. And Kroger is turning back to the basics of selling groceries after trying to sell too many new products and renovate too many stores at once. The Wall Street Journal reports a supermarket chain is planning to refurbish stores at a slower pace so that it can keep more stores fully operational. Courtney Donahoe, Bloomberg Radio.
Imagine being fired because of who you love. Imagine being denied medical treatment because of who you marry. Imagine being evicted because of who you are. Millions of Americans don't have to imagine this. They have to live it. Because in 31 states, it's legal to discriminate against LGBT people. Get the facts at beyondido.org. Brought to you by the Gill Foundation and the Ad Council.
What if you could keep the top economic experts in a conference room next to your office without having to feed them?
Do we need better optics? Do we need some substance?
Do CEOs care about ESG?
We have seen quite a lot of stimulus pumped into the system already.
It's the biggest warning yet about the financial risks of climate change.
Now there are more ways to hear us. Bloomberg Radio, the Bloomberg Business, Radio.com, and iHeartRadio apps, and at BloombergRadio.com. Bloomberg, the world is listening.
For the independent bookseller who found you that first edition. For the baker who brings the smell of freshly baked breads to your door.
And for the barista who never needs to ask your name.
We've all got a part to play.
Every little tap keeps your high street alive.
And helps your communities thrive.
So if you love where you live, shop small.
Shopping on your local high street can make a big difference. Shop small. Only by American Express.
On 3, our unlimited data is actually unlimited, like 4 reels. That means you can scroll and scroll and scroll through all the Black Friday deals.
Because we have no speed limits, no data caps, and you'll be 5G ready at no extra cost.
Wow, so many savings.
Our Black Friday deals are now on. Save up to £480. Switch to 3, in-store or online. See 3.co.uk/unlimited-data. Savings on selected phones on 24-month contracts. Ends 5th of December. Terms apply.
If you're planning on driving this weekend, expect delays on the A406 North Circular Road. There'll be road closures between Tottenham and Edmonton from 10 p.m. on Friday the 22nd of November to 5 a.m. on Monday the 25th of November, while we carry out essential maintenance and repairs. All roads in the surrounding area will be extremely busy, so please allow more time for your journey and expect delays in the area. Plan ahead and check alternative routes at tfl.gov.uk. To the Mayor of London and TfL, every journey matters.
So, on Monday I left work at 5:36 instead of 5:30. Wednesday was 5:41. Yesterday I made the whole team a cup of tea. And today I lent someone my stapler. Do I deserve this? Yes, I think I do.
Go on. Treat yourself to an O2 Black Friday deal. We've slashed our prices by up to £300 on selected handsets. You know you deserve it. Search O2 Black Friday.
It's 4th of December 2019. O2 refresh credit by Telefonica UK Limited. Eligibility and terms apply.
Are you curious what others are listening to on TuneIn? Head to the trending section under Browse to see the most popular stations and podcasts among TuneIn listeners right now. Check it out. You might just discover something new for yourself.
Want TuneIn to remind you when the big NFL game is about to get underway? Be sure notifications are allowed on your phone and search NFL on the TuneIn app. Find the game you want to hear under events and tap Notify Me. We'll let you know exactly when it's time to listen in for kickoff. Hey, NFL fans, can't watch the game? Can't be there? No biggie. With your TuneIn Premium membership, you have unlimited access to every team and every game in the league. Listen live as it happens or on demand. Anytime, anywhere. All season long. Search NFL today.
Want to hear about the latest and greatest things to listen to on TuneIn? For reminders of the biggest live sports games, debates, and breaking news stories, follow @TuneIn on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram to stay connected with the audio that matters to you.
College football is live on TuneIn. Listen for free to games from more than 140 schools all season long.
To the 10, all the way to the checkerboard. Somebody stays on his feet and scores.
Number 2 Ohio State looks to clinch the Big Ten Eastern Title Division outright and a spot in the Big Ten Conference Championship game as they host the 9th-ranked Penn State Nittany Lions in Columbus. This Saturday at 12 p.m. Eastern. Listen to every call and every game of your school all season long for free on TuneIn. Penn State at Ohio State. Just search college to listen today.
Broadcasting live from the Bloomberg Interactive Broker Studio in New York. Bloomberg 1130 to Washington, D.C. Bloomberg 99.1 to Boston. Bloomberg 106.1 to San Francisco. Bloomberg 960 to the country. Sirius XM Channel 119. And around the globe, the Bloomberg Business app and BloombergRadio.com. This is Bloomberg Markets.
Coming up, we're going to take a look at the luxury goods market. LVMH and Tiffany are said to be in talks on a $16 billion merger. We'll dive into those details. Plus, we'll take a look at hedge funds and private equity companies. Do they need to provide more investor disclosure? We'll take a look. But first, let's go to Greg Jarrett of Bloomberg News for a Bloomberg Business Flash. Greg.
Paul, we're getting word from the EIA that U.S. natural gas stockpiles fell 94 billion cubic feet last week. Chipmakers are leading losses on the S&P. TD Ameritrade soared on reports that Charles Schwab is in talks to buy that brokerage. TD up 16%. The dollar's holding steady. Treasuries are down as China's chief trade negotiator reportedly said he was cautiously optimistic about reaching a phase 1 trade deal with the USA. Chief Chevron Federated Global Investment Management tells Bloomberg they see the S&P closing out 2020 at 3,500 in spite of any U.S.-China trade tension.
Look, it's disruptive, certainly, and from a headline perspective, it can be nerve-wracking. But at the end of the day, on the U.S. side, we're a relatively closed economy that's driven by our own consumer, and the fundamentals behind that consumer are strong. And if we are protecting that intellectual property for our companies, ultimately they will drive higher earnings, and that'll be reflected in shares.
We check the markets every 15 minutes throughout the trading day on Bloomberg Radio. S&P 500's down 0.4%, down 13. The Dow's down 0.4%, down 108. And the Nasdaq's down 0.4%, down 37. The 10-year's down 3/32 with a yield of 1.75%. West Texas Intermediate's up 1.6% at 57.92 a barrel, while COMEX Gold's down 0.3% at 14.69.10 an ounce. The dollar yen 108.55. The euro $1.10.67, and the British pound $1.29.20. That's a Bloomberg Business Flash. I'm Greg Jarrett.
This is Bloomberg Markets with Lisa Abramowitz and Paul Sweeney on Bloomberg Radio.
Consolidation in the luxury space. LVMH and Tiffany are said to enter talks on a $16 billion offer. Joining us here to give us some more color is Kim Basine. He covers all things retail for us here at Bloomberg News. We are seeing the shares surge on this news. Well, Tiffany's is not up that much, 2.7%. Can you give us a sense of what the logic is behind this tie-up?
Yeah, so LVMH is trying to win over Tiffany with an offer of about $15.7 billion. That's up from the $14.5 it offered last month. This one is about $130 a share, up from $120. So analysts have had a bit of a mixed reaction to this. Some think this takeover will be appealing for Tiffany, but others have price targets of $140 or more. I think Cowen has $160 on them. Tiffany was really expected to reject that initial offer, but this one should at least open the books for LVMH to take a look.
All right, what's the industrial logic here of putting these two brands, these two companies together?
It's becoming increasingly apparent that LVMH chairman Bernard Arnault really wants he has aspirations in the U.S. He opened a Louis Vuitton factory in Texas. This would be his third foray in American brands. They bought Marc Jacobs a long time ago and then Donna Karan. Neither one of those really worked out. as they wanted to. Tiffany would be a great way to increase exposure to the U.S. market and also provide LVMH with a way to challenge brands like Cartier for supremacy in jewelry.
So I'm looking right now at the price of Tiffany shares, $126.53, which implies that people don't believe it's going to get done at the price that it's being set at right now.
That's right. And there's a lot happening at Tiffany right now. It's been trying to find younger shoppers in the U.S. and at the same time they're wrestling with this whole uncertain tourist traffic problem that they've been having lately. Tiffany relies on that foreign tourist spend at places like its Manhattan flagship, which can do as much as 10% of annual sales there. And also they just hired a new executive to run their brand. They have a chief brand officer, Daniela Vitale. She comes from Barney's, which just went bankrupt. 3 weeks later, after the Authentic Brands buys Barney's, she gets this role to run Tiffany's brand.
So Tiffany's, when I think of them, I mean, it's such an iconic luxury brand. How long have they been independent? Because it seems to me like, again, just such an iconic brand to see them swallowed up by this LVMH, which is such a big company.
They're like 180 years old or something. Yeah. Tiffany started off by bringing over, I believe, the crown jewels of Europe and to create all this hype for this jewelry company across the Atlantic. The CEO, Alessandro Bolliolo, talks a lot about legacy. Whenever you ask him a question about this takeover, he answers, listen, I need to consider the legacy of Tiffany, while dodging the question. But and that's really important to a company like this. That's where their brand value comes from. That's how people think of this brand.
Just to get some perspective here, Tiffany shares up more than 60% year to date. LVMH ADR is looking like they are up about 51% year to date. There has been a boon among luxury consumers. What's been driving that?
I think a lot of this comes from Asia. Tiffany's doing very well in China, and they had been doing very well with Chinese tourists in the U.S. For a while now. That has become a bit of a problem lately. But in Asia, people are still buying lots of Tiffany. And back here in the U.S., they've gotten a little bit more traction with younger shoppers, with becoming more relevant with millennials. And, you would buy that $200 silver bracelet for graduation or something like that. That's still there. And it's something that they have relied on for a long time.
Hold on a second. You can buy a bracelet for $200 for Tiffany.
$400
I think you need to jack that up. I remember getting a gift certificate to Tiffany after my first son was born a while back, and we got a rattle.
A rattle?
A rattle for several $100. Yes, silver. I mean, there was really little else to carry on.
Can Tiffany just say no, walk away?
They can. But apparently this is interesting enough for them to really look into. Look, Tiffany CEO Alessandro Bolliolo will speak with our colleague Carol Masser today at the Bloomberg Year Ahead Luxury Conference in just a few hours, so hopefully there's some more insight.
Kim Basine, thanks so much for joining us. Kim Basine, Bloomberg News, covering all things luxury. Talking about this potential deal between LVMH and Tiffany, upwards of $16 billion, signaling some continued consolidation in the luxury market. But again, if I'm Tiffany, and as Kim was just saying, more than 100-year brand, I'm holding out for absolutely monster top dollar, or I'm walking away.
I am wrong. I'm looking right now at a Tiffany mini heart tag sterling silver bracelet for $165.
There you go.
I could have traded in that rattle for that.
Exactly.
But, there are those. It is an interesting time. I will say there's a lot of confusion that I have certainly about the Chinese wealthy buyer, especially given some of the concerns about capital outflows, et cetera, from China. So definitely an interesting area that this has continued to be hot.
Yeah, and it's interesting. LVMH viewing Tiffany as a kind of a way to expand their footprint in the U.S. So certainly makes strategic sense for them. We'll see how they can agree on price. Right now, let's head down to our 99.1 studios in Washington, D.C. for World and National Headlines with Nathan Hager. Nathan.
Paul, we continue to follow the final day of public impeachment hearings of this week. The House Intelligence Committee has been hearing from a career Russia expert who served in administrations of both parties, British-born Fiona Hill, Bloomberg's Irv Chapman reports the diplomat is warning against Russian subversion. Irv joins us from Capitol Hill. Irv.
Nathan, Hill rebutted the idea that Ukrainians, rather than or as well as Russians, interfered in the 2016 U.S. election, calling that a false narrative promoted by Vladimir Putin, who promotes and delights in America's polarization.
This is exactly what the Russian government was hoping for. They seed misinformation, they seed doubt, pit one side of our electorate against the other. We need to be very careful as we discuss all of these issues, not to give them more fodder that they can use against us in 2020.
Hill described Russia's aims to regain control over Ukraine and disrupt the West. Nathan?
Bloomberg's Irv Chapman on Capitol Hill. Again, Bloomberg Terminal customers can watch the proceedings at Live Go. A federal judge in Washington has halted the executions of 4 federal prisoners that were scheduled to begin next month. U.S. District Judge Tanya Chutkin ruled the executions would prevent those inmates from pursuing legal challenges to lethal injection. The move essentially blocks the Trump administration's plan to resume the death penalty at the federal level after a 16-year moratorium. In Thailand, thousands have filled the National Sports Stadium in Bangkok for Pope Francis's first public mass in that country. Global news 24 hours a day on air and at TikTok on Twitter, powered by more than 2,700 journalists and analysts in more than 120 countries. I'm Nathan Hager. This is Bloomberg.
Business is constantly evolving. Is your financial printer evolving to keep ahead of the curve? At Command Financial, we are redefining financial printing by providing industry-leading expertise, leveraging technology, and honing processes and best practices. Every day, Command helps SEC registrants, as well as members of their working groups, including securities attorneys and investment bankers, prepare, file, and disseminate regulatory and disclosure documents, such as registration statements, M&A documents, and mutual fund prospectuses and reports. Command provides a full range of services to help you effectively complete your deal, meet your disclosure requirements, and achieve your shareholder communications objectives. Visit our website at commandfinancial.com and learn how we're evolving, not only with the times, but also with your business requirements. Command Financial, redefining financial printing.
Elite advisory firms rely on BNY Mellon's Pershing to meet the needs of their most complex clients. Karen Novak, Chief Operating Officer at Pershing Advisor Solutions, explains how.
At BNY Mellon's Pershing, we bring customized insights and strategies to help you grow your advisory business and stay on the leading edge. We can support the needs of your most sophisticated clients with a full range of investment and wealth management solutions, from access to private banking to consolidated bank and brokerage custody. Learn why so many of the largest advisory firms turn to us for the financial strength and high-touch service that BNY Mellon's Pershing can provide. Are you well positioned to stand out from your competition?
Learn more at Pershing.com or call 800-445-4467. Brokerage custody provided by Pershing LLC and other services provided by Pershing Advisor Solutions LLC. Both members of FINRA and SIPC. Private banking and bank custody provided by BNY Mellon NA. Member FDIC.
At Lidl, we're big on those little reasons to be jolly, like our delicious Favorina all butter mini Stollen bites for just $1.99 and 6 deluxe mince pies for just $1.35. Big on a Christmas you can believe in. Now that's big on quality and always Lidl on price. Subject to availability, selected stores, excludes NI.
On 3, our unlimited data is actually unlimited, like 4 reels. That means you can scroll and scroll and scroll through all the Black Friday deals.
Because we have no speed limits, no data caps, and you'll be 5G ready at no extra cost.
Wow, so many savings.
Our Black Friday deals are now on. Save up to £480. Switch to 3, in-store or online. See 3.co.uk/unlimited-data. Savings on selected phones on 24-month contracts. Ends 5th of December. Terms apply.
Dear noble shopkeeper, is 25 the magic number?
That's right. For one night only, the Lotto birthday jackpot is £25 million. And it must be won this Saturday.
Lotto, celebrating 25 years of the National Lottery. Your numbers make amazing happen. Rules and procedures apply. Players must be 16 or over.
Elsa, the past is not what it seems. You must find the truth.
Journey into the unknown with Disney's Frozen 2, the most anticipated musical movie event of the year.
We do this together, okay?
This November.
I believe in you, Elsa.
more than anyone or anything. Into the air.
Change is in the air. Frozen 2 in cinemas November 22nd.
If your ideas challenge the status quo, if you have advised people you had no right advising, if you built companies and lost companies and built them again, if you've been called a pillock, a dreamer, an innovator and a genius, if you thrive in the 11th hour, if you have blown it and completely nailed it in the same day, prepare for your next departure.
Do business right. Travel Virgin Atlantic.
Going, gone.
Some things just don't hang around, like a great deal in Tesco Mobile's best ever Black Friday event. Right now you can get the Samsung Galaxy S10 for just $29.99 a month. But this deal ends Sunday 1st of December. Catch it before it's gone. Tesco Mobile's best ever Black Friday event. Tesco Mobile. Every little helps.
Best ever Black Friday based on range of products in promotion was £35.99, now £29.99. Offer ends 1st of December. 36-month credit agreement, rolling monthly usage agreement, subject to status, phase, policy applies. See tescomobile.com/terms.
College football is live on TuneIn. Listen for free to games from more than 140 schools all season long.
To the 10, all the way to the checkerboard. But he stays on his feet and scores.
Number 2 Ohio State looks to clinch the Big Ten Eastern Title Division outright and a spot in the Big Ten Conference Championship game as they host the 9th-ranked Penn State Nittany Lions in Columbus. This Saturday at 12 p.m. Eastern. Listen to every call and every game of your school all season long for free on TuneIn. Penn State at Ohio State. Just search college to listen today.
In case you didn't know, TuneIn lets you listen to the same radio stations you pick up on your home or car radio, except you can hear them from anywhere. If you want to find a station from somewhere else in the world, navigate to the By Location section under Browse. Keep exploring with TuneIn.
Right now, instead of hearing this, you could be listening to the music that keeps you moving with TuneIn Premium. Find today's biggest songs and all of your favorites commercial-free. Visit TuneIn.com/premium to upgrade.
Markets, headlines, and breaking news 24 hours a day at Bloomberg.com, the Bloomberg Business app, and at TikTok on Twitter. This is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
We're getting word that WeWork says it's cutting 2,400 jobs globally, and we'll follow up on that as soon as we get more information. Meanwhile, stocks are down after losses in Europe and Asia on signs of tensions between Beijing and Washington as the superpowers negotiate a trade deal. We check the markets every 15 minutes throughout the trading day here on Bloomberg Radio. The S&P 500 is down 0.3%, down 8. The Dow's down 0.3%, down 76, and the Nasdaq's down 0.3%, down 24. The 10-year is down 3/30 seconds. The yield 1.75%. West Texas Intermediate crude's up 1.9% at $58.09 a barrel, with COMEX gold down 0.3% at $14.69 even an ounce. The yen is at the dollar yen is at 108.56. The euro at $1.1073, and the British pound at $1.2924. That's a Bloomberg Business Flash. I'm Greg Jarrett.
This is Bloomberg Markets with Lisa Abramowitz and Paul Sweeney on Bloomberg Radio.
Let's continue our discussion of economics. The Conference Board this morning released its leading economic indicator. To walk us through the details, Bart Van Ark, Chief Economist at the Conference Board. Bart, thanks so much for joining us here on our Bloomberg Interactive Broker Studio. What did the data tell you today?
Well, the data shows for the third month that we have a moderate decline, but perhaps what's a little more important is that on a 6-month basis, which is averaging it out a little bit, we now see a very modest decline. It's only 0.1% points, so it's nothing to really hugely panic about. What's interesting are some of the underlying changes that we're seeing in the index.
Okay.
So, just carry on. Well, what is most important is that in previous months, it was to a large extent driven by the decline in manufacturing. And that actually is still a little bit of that there. Certainly, obviously, new orders is still quite negative. But what we see now in this month is that actually the labor market shows a little bit of weakening. So one of our underlying indexes is the average work week. One underlying index is initial claims. Both of them are now adding negatively to the index. Now, that sounds like bad news, but let's not forget that the labor market has been extraordinarily strong. So at some point we would expect this. So on balance, we actually think this is actually not a terrible result. We really need to see how this is going to evolve over the next few months.
Is your leading economic indicator weighted similarly to the U.S. economy, which is 2/3, 70% the consumer?
Well, leading economic indexes always put a little bit more emphasis on production and on manufacturing, and a lot of that that's where you have a lot more of the volatility, and a lot of that is playing through in the rest of the economy. Services tend to be much more stable, the consumer tends to be very strong, but it are exactly those elements, actually, services and consumers, that sort of keep us again a little bit more moderate on making sort of huge implications from this negative number today.
It is interesting, though, that the trend is shifting away from the steady improvement that we had been seeing, particularly with the consumer. And we saw that again today with the jobless claims just ticking up a touch and really just a fraction and from a very, very, very low rate. But at what point do you have to start paying more attention to this as a sign of a weakening consumer?
Well, you first have to see it for multiple months. You have to see considerably more layoffs happening over time. And again, there's nothing of that in the works. We get a holiday season coming up. It looks like to be pretty strong as far as the numbers are giving us projections right now.
But is that a leading indicator or a lagging indicator by the time that it gets to the point where companies are laying
consumers? It's a good point. Consumers and labor markets, to a large extent, are coincident indicators. So they are actually an assessment of the current situation. And again, when we look at the coincident part of this index, so the assessment of what's happening now, is actually even stronger than it was in previous months.
So from the Federal Reserve, they seem to be suggesting, if you look at the Fed Fund futures rate, maybe one more cut in September. Does your leading economic indicator kind of make sense given kind of how the Fed's thinking about it right now?
Absolutely. I think, with the cut we just had this past month, we do really think that the Fed is now going to wait and see how these numbers are going to evolve. And again, this sort of slightly negative number was to be expected. This market has been so strong for such a long time, this economy, that we would expect this leveling off. So, yeah, it's going to be a pause for the time being.
Earlier in the show, we were speaking with Danielle DiMartino-Booth, and she was talking about a bit of a resurgence that we're seeing on some industrial measures, and that she expects some sort of gains to be had in that sector next year. What are you seeing?
Well, actually, this morning, the Philadelphia's Fed manufacturing survey showed up a little bit. So there are some numbers that are pointing in that direction. But look, let's not fool ourselves. Manufacturing production is in deep trouble, and it's still sinking. But I do think that there might be something happening here. We're particularly looking at China, because a lot of this decline in manufacturing production really sort of originated in China about 2 years ago. There we actually see a little bit of a silver lining. A lot of overcapacity is gone. China may actually begin to stimulate the economy a little bit in order to avoid a further slowdown, and that will spill itself through into the global economy. So, yeah, we would tie on to this idea that we might see an easing or perhaps even a bottoming out of manufacturing production over there.
Do you have a recession in your model at any point?
Well, at some point the recession is going to happen. But, these indexes are looking sort of 6 months out. I would go as far as say, I dare to say something about the next 9 months. I think until the summer of next year, I'd be surprised if the U.S. economy would run into huge trouble with the big R word.
The big R word.
There you go.
All right. So what did you think in terms of the response from CEOs with respect to trade? We are getting headlines every day that give us a different story. How much is that imperative for their modeling for next year?
There's something unusual, of course, at the moment about this situation where the consumers are still very confident. Our consumer confidence index at the conference board keeps, at record levels. It's a little bit more volatile the last few months, whereas this business confidence index, which is the other thing we do, has actually been declining over and over again. We know that a lot of that is tied to the trade dispute. We've asked CEOs this. We see it in our surveys that they do tie these kind of things. So there was a little bit of a feel in the last 2-3 weeks that we will be getting somewhere, but,
Wait, has the spread ever been further apart in terms of the business confidence versus consumer confidence?
Not in the past 2 decades, I would say. This is pretty unusual. But again, it's also, of course, this whole trade dispute is pretty unusual. So it's perhaps not surprising that CEOs are reacting so strongly to this.
Do you see that does it show up in your data anywhere? Maybe business investment, something like that?
Yes, we do have manufacturers' new orders in there. And again, that actually picked up a little bit this month. But, these numbers are very, very volatile. So we never take too many implications from month over month. It's the 6 months average that is important and there again, I would say maybe easing at this point in time. But you're right. I mean, linking it back to business confidence, the key driver of business investment will be that confidence number going back up. So a deal with China, even if it is a small deal, will be enough in our view to actually get business confidence confidence back at track.
Bart Van Ark, thank you so much for being with us. Okay. Bart Van Ark is the chief economist at the conference board, talking about the slight decline that we saw in the leading consumer confidence figures. Interesting to see that actually, after turning slightly negative, the surprise index is trying to tick back up in the United States. But definitely we have seen a softening when it comes to the reality of the data versus expectations. And there is a question, is this going to be a turning point? And does it matter when we're coming from such a strong base? Right now, let's find out what's going on with the impeachment hearings. Nathan Hager down in Washington, D.C. Nathan.
Lisa, it's a fifth day of public hearings, the last one of this week, and it features two witnesses before the House Intelligence Committee. David Holmes is the Foreign Service Officer at the U.S. Embassy in Kiev who said he overheard EU Ambassador Gordon Sondland's phone call with President Trump July 26th, the day after the call with Ukraine's president, that is at the center of this inquiry.
Well, Ambassador Sondland's phone was not on speakerphone. I could hear the president's voice through the earpiece of the phone. The president's voice was loud and recognizable. And Ambassador Sondland held the phone away from his ear for a period of time, presumably because of the loud volume.
And after the call, Holmes says Sondland told him the president, quote, did not give a blank about Ukraine. The panel is also hearing from Fiona Hill, the former top Russia advisor on the National Security Council. She's warning lawmakers not to believe what she calls the fictional narrative spread by Russia that Ukraine interfered in the 2016 election. Devin Nunes is the ranking Republican on the House Intelligence Committee.
Needless to say, it is entirely possible for two separate nations to engage in election meddling at the same time, and Republicans believe we should take meddling seriously by all foreign countries, regardless of which campaign is the target.
Hill says the current division and chaos in U.S. politics is exactly what the Russian government was hoping for. We have a live report from Capitol Hill coming up in 15 minutes, and Bloomberg Terminal customers can watch the hearings at Live Go. I'm Nathan Hager. This is Bloomberg.
Next. Nah. Nope. Boring. If you skip through loads of your TV channels, why are you paying loads of money for them? With TalkTalk TV and Faster Fibre, you can access the nation's favourite TV shows, a world of films and sport, live and on demand, all for £25.95 a month for 18 months. And if you're quick, you'll even get a year of Amazon Prime on us. Search TalkTalk TV. TalkTalk. For everyone. Offer ends 5th of December, subject to availability. T's and C's apply.
At Lidl, we're big on all those Christmas parties. The season to be jolly. Try our Party Time Indian snack selection for only $2.99. And our Party Time mac and cheese bites for just $1.19. Big on a Christmas you can believe in. Now that's big on quality and always Lidl on price. Subject to availability, selected stores exclude an eye.
If you're planning on driving this weekend, expect delays on the A406 North Circular Road. There'll be road closures between Tottenham and Edmonton from 10 p.m. on Friday the 22nd of November to 5 a.m. on Monday the 25th of November, while we carry out essential maintenance and repairs. All roads in the surrounding area will be extremely busy, so please allow more time for your journey and expect delays in the area. Plan ahead and check alternative routes at tfl.gov.uk. To the Mayor of London and TfL, every journey matters.
Introducing a new podcast, ESPN Daily. When you want to go beyond your feed, when you want to get inside the score, when you want to get behind the highlight, there's ESPN Daily. Go deeper into the stories of the moment. Get the exclusive access and insider perspective that only ESPN can give you. ESPN Daily, hosted by me, Mina Kimes. Listen now to ESPN Daily on TuneIn.
Ah, finally another commercial, said no one ever. Visit TuneIn.com/premium to upgrade now and get over 45 commercial-free music stations.
College football is live on TuneIn. Listen for free to games from more than 140 schools all season long.
To the 10, all the way to the checkerboard. Somebody stays on his feet and scores.
Number 2 Ohio State looks to clinch the Big Ten Eastern Title Division outright and a spot in the Big Ten Conference Championship game as they host the 9th-ranked Penn State Nittany Lions in Columbus. This Saturday at 12 p.m. Eastern. Listen to every call and every game of your school all season long for free on TuneIn. Penn State at Ohio State. Just search college to listen today.
The swagger of a perfect dunk. The rush of a three made from all the way downtown. The adrenaline surge of great defense. Can you feel the goosebumps yet? There's nothing like live NBA and nothing like listening live on TuneIn.
Giannis down the lane to the rim, throwing right corner three, another one.
TuneIn Premium brings you every minute of the NBA season, so you can be there when it matters most. Never miss the action as it happens. Hear the ball you love. Hear it live on TuneIn. Search NBA today to start listening.
Financial capital of the world, 24 hours a day at Bloomberg.com, on the Bloomberg Business app, and at TikTok on Twitter. This is Bloomberg Radio. This is Bloomberg Markets with Lisa Abramowitz and Paul Sweeney.
Are we on the brink of a more serious downturn?
I've always thought of the municipal bond market as a little bit of a safe haven.
Banks are going to have to start paying their depositors more.
Are we still in that mode where we're buying the dips?
Breaking market news and insight from Bloomberg experts.
Cash, if you're looking at treasury bills, provides a higher return than stocks and bonds here in the U.S.
If your consumer is a woman, you're more likely to be a growth company.
Longer-term interest rates can go down, even with short-term interest rates still going up a little bit.
This is Bloomberg Markets with Lisa Abramowitz and Paul Sweeney on Bloomberg Radio.
Coming up, we're going to speak to Ron Coughlin, the CEO of Petco, to get the latest on the business of pets. Plus, look at the latest on the U.S.-China trade negotiations. But first, let's go to Greg Jarrett of Bloomberg News for a Bloomberg Business Flash. Greg.
Almost 4 stocks fell for every Wednesday gain. The S&P has continuing concern about China-U.S. trade talks goes on. We check the markets every 15 minutes throughout the trading day on Bloomberg Radio. S&P 500's down 0.2%, down 7. The Dow is down 0.3%, down 80. And the Nasdaq's down 0.3%, down 23. The 10-year is down 2/30 seconds. The yield 1.75%. West Texas Intermediate crude is now up 1.9% at $59.08 a barrel, while COMEX gold's down 0.3% at $14.6950 an ounce. The dollar yen stands at 108.52. The euro $1.10.76, and the British pound $1.29.21. Now that's a Bloomberg Business Flash. We continue with Bloomberg Markets. Lisa and Paul.
Thank you so much, Greg Jarrett. It's time to take a look at small and mid-cap shares. Dave Wilson, Bloomberg Stocks Editor, joining us here in our interactive broker studios, looking at a bit of a softer tone today.
Yeah, you could say that. I mean, smaller companies down more than larger ones. The Russell 2000 index lower by 0.6%, and the S&P 500 is only lower by 0.25%. One of the Russell's steepest drops belongs to Cubic, whose ticker is CUB. The defense and mass transit company has fallen about 19.5%. Gauge of fiscal fourth quarter earnings trailed analyst average estimate in a Bloomberg survey. Glycomimetics, ticker GLYC, has slipped 17.5%. The drug developer said it now expects final stage study results for leukemia treatment in 2021 rather than the end of 2020 as previously scheduled. And Lazy Boy, ticker LZB, is down 12%. Fiscal second quarter earnings at the furniture maker and retailer came up short of the lowest analyst estimate. Just mentioned the Russell's sharpest gain. That's 22nd Century Group, ticker XXII. The tobacco producer has rallied almost 43%. 22nd Century tumbled yesterday by 43% after U.S. regulators put off a plan to cut nicotine in cigarettes.
Bloomberg Stocks Editor Dave Wilson. Let's switch gears here and take a look at the business of pets. Ron Coughlin is the CEO of Petco. Petco was taken private, I believe, back in 2015 by CVC Capital Partners and some others. Ron, thanks so much for joining us. Love to just get an update on Petco and kind of where the market is right now for you guys.
Absolutely. Well, thanks for having me. A year ago, I joined you, and we were talking about taking a $100 million bet on our business by taking out all products that have artificial ingredients. And today, I'm proud to say that not only have we removed 1.5 million pounds of food with artificial ingredients, but our business has gone from declining 3 to 4% to up 3 to 4%. So we've had this contention that what's good for the pet is good for Petco, and it's proven true.
Ron, are we reaching peak pet where people are buying health food for their dogs?
One of the wonderful things about the pet market is it's a growth market, so I would say it's not peaking. More and more, there's an adage, pets used to be in the outdoors, then they were in the backyard, then they were in the house, and now they're in our bed. So more and more folks are wanting to take care of their pets the way they take care of themselves, and that includes avoiding artificial ingredients.
So interesting here. So give us a sense of kind of the growth dynamic of kind of the global pet food industry or the U.S. pet food industry.
Yeah, so it's a 6% growth business. You have roughly 1% growth in the number of pets, but in terms of how folks are taking care of their pets, the type of food that they're serving pets, they're more and more they want to move away from the old Roys of the world and towards the better for you foods. And a perfect example is my dog Yummy. He's a yellow lab. He's going on 11 years old. And before I joined Petco, I feeding him a middle-of-the-road food, shame on me. And I switched him to a product called Just Food for Dogs, which is a human-grade food, fresh fish and sweet potatoes. He immediately lost 15 pounds, and he's back to acting like a puppy.
I feel like this is a PSA. This is the reason why.
Take care of your pets.
Yeah, but I wanted to talk about the growth market. There has been a shift, people having fewer kids, having more dogs, and I'm wondering, how far along in that evolution are we? Wasn't it something like people adopted more pets than had kids last year or something?
I've heard that statistic. I know more about pets than I do about kids at this point. Mine are sent to leave the house, but I have heard that statistic. On your first comment about PSA, one of the things that removing the artificials did was it regained the soul of Petco and really unlocked our partners' passion for pets, and it was really powerful for us. But people they're waiting longer to have kids, and the pets are replacing some of that loving being in the house, and I think it's good for people and good for America.
I will just say this, given the fact that dogs are more likely to be consistently loving than your children, perhaps people are getting annoyed with getting talk back.
Exactly.
Paul.
So, Ron, give us a sense
must have seen my kids.
Give us a sense of the competitive environment. Is the pet food business one of those retail or consumer businesses that's been disrupted by, say, technology, much like Amazon has done? So give us a sense of the competitive environment.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm not going to claim that hasn't impacted the pet industry. You have the Amazon factor, you have the Chewy factor, and they've seen success in the pet market. And quite frankly, Petco had to go back and retool, and that was the bad news. The good news is we did, and it's working. So in the last year, we've launched buy online, pick up in store. It's been hugely successful. We reached over 1 million downloads of our app. We have repeat delivery. And so our online business is growing 20 plus right now. So what was a threat is now turning into a tailwind for us.
One thing that we've seen recently is a bit of volatility in the speculative grade credit market. And I'm just wondering how much money you need to raise at this point, given the fact that you have a B tier credit rating and things are getting a little bit more challenging for some companies.
Yeah, we don't need to raise money, and we have access to capital as we need it. So from that standpoint, we're solid. We have 2 great private equity primary partners in CVC Partners and CPP, the Canadian Pension Fund, and we're back to growth on the top line, and we're looking forward to sharing our results on the bottom line with our lenders in a few weeks. So we're good on that front. And so we feel good about our execution and our financial health.
Where's the biggest opportunity for growth for Petco?
I'd say 2 things. One is digital, continuing to drive our digital business. And the second is we're shifting to services. And those are services that those digital players don't have. So we've taken our grooming business from a declining 7 to 8% to a declining near double-digit business. Our training business is in growth. And we are driving probably the fastest vet network build-out in history. And what's significant about that is, too, for the benefit of the pets, we're talking about affordable vet care. A lot of pets don't get the vet care they need because of affordability. And the second thing is, wherever we put a vet, we get the vet income, but we also get a 4 to 7 point lift in our center source sales. So it's good for the pet and it's good for our business.
Ron Coughlin, thank you so much for being with us. Ron Coughlin is Petco Chief Executive Officer, talking about a push toward more natural ingredients for people's pets. I got to say, it is just shocking to see the trend line of births the birth rate versus the pet adoption rate. It is absolutely, diametrically opposed in terms of those trend lines. And it makes sense. It's a lot easier to get a dog to love you sometimes than a 7-year-old child who is tired and hungry and very stubborn. Exactly. Just saying, theoretically, should that happen?
Exactly. I found it interesting, just kind of how the organic movement in human food is also finding its way in pet food as well. I wasn't aware.
Well, I mean, come on. If you care about yourself and then you don't care about your pet, I mean, there's an entire industry to guilt you for that, to tell you why you're destroying their health and your own personal mental health with respect to animal rights. Anyway, right now, let's head down to our 99.1 studios in Washington, D.C. Nathan Hager with World's and National Headlines. Nathan.
As we continue to follow public impeachment hearings, Lisa, the House Intelligence Committee has been hearing from the U.S. Embassy officer who overheard the phone call in which President Trump asked European Union Ambassador Gordon Sondland for assurance that Ukraine investigations he wanted were going forward. Let's get the latest live from Bloomberg's Irv Chapman on Capitol Hill. Irv.
Nathan, David Holmes said the restoration of military aid was obviously crucial to the Ukrainians, but there's more on their minds than that.
Although the hold on the security assistance may have been lifted, there were still things they wanted that they weren't getting, including a meeting with the president in the Oval Office. I think that continues to this day. I think they're being very careful. They still need us. President Zelensky is trying to arrange a summit meeting with President Putin. He needs our support at the highest levels.
Holmes said in addition to the equipment, American military training missions had helped Ukraine create an effective, battle-hardened force to combat the Russian-sparked invasion. Nathan?
Bloomberg's Irv Chapman with us from Capitol Hill. Now, impeachment drama was center stage at last night's Democratic presidential debate in Atlanta. Amy Klobuchar had a moment when she said, if you think a woman can't beat Donald Trump, Nancy Pelosi does it every single day. The senator elaborated on that in the post-debate spin room.
I think it's really important for women, if we're going to get in power, including in the boardroom, for people to start talking about the fact that we're not going to look like any of the other presidents. And I wanted to take that on in a big way.
Meantime, President Trump says he will release a financial statement sometime before the election. He announced that on Twitter while complaining about New York prosecutors trying to obtain his financial records. Global news 24 hours a day on air and at TikTok, on Twitter, powered by more than 2,700 journalists and analysts in more than 120 countries. This is Bloomberg.
Full breakfast, cup of coffee, whatever you have in the morning, have it at daybreak.
What's the outlook for the pound if there is another election?
Nathan Hager.
The U.S. could still delay those tariffs?
And Karen Moscow.
It is the fifth major industry player to make some sort of zero commission offer.
Bloomberg Daybreak.
Bloomberg has more from Hong Kong.
Weekdays at 5 a.m. Eastern on Bloomberg Radio, the Bloomberg Business app, and BloombergRadio.com. Bloomberg, the world is listening.
To buy your home, you became a house hunting ace, learned about loans, scoured neighborhoods, and asked the right questions. Now you're queen of your castle. If you manage that, you can get your retirement plan on track. Visiting aceyourretirement.org can help. With 401k tips and smart saving strategies, you'll feel empowered to own your retirement like you own your home. Go to aceyourretirement.org. Because when it comes to clearing financial hurdles, you're an ace. Brought to you by AARP and the Ad Council.
The market's in focus every business day. The P&L Podcast with Paul Sweeney and Lisa Abramowitz.
Are there some sectors that you want to have more or less exposure to?
What's behind this engine of gains?
Analysis of the day's Wall Street action.
The U.S. market looks relatively safe.
From Bloomberg Intelligence, Bloomberg Opinion, and influential newsmakers.
Ward McCarthy joins us right now.
P&L with Paul Sweeney and Lisa Abramowitz. Listen today on Bloomberg.com, the Bloomberg Business app, or subscribe on Apple Podcasts.
Hi, everyone. Al Roker here. As a guy with his own catchphrase, I appreciate that after 75 years, Smokey's only said,
only you can prevent wildfires.
But I'm filling in because there's a lot more to report. Like when it's dry or windy. Be careful burning yard waste, because wildfires can even start in your neck of the woods. Go to SmokeyBear.com to learn more about wildfire prevention. Brought to you by the U.S. Forest Service, your state forester, and the Ad Council.
It's hard to find a children's gift which doesn't have a short shelf life. They'll eat all the chocolates in 5 minutes, finish their video games by the end of the week, and grow out of their trainers before you know it. So instead of buying them something just for Christmas, buy them something that's for life. Premium bonds from NS&I. Every month they'll have the chance to win cash prizes. And now you can buy premium bonds for any child. Start their savings journey from just £25. Search Gift Premium Bonds to find out more.
I love Black Friday. Busy shops, crazy people, average deals. It's so much fun.
Said no one ever. So be savvy and do Black Friday the easy way with Smarty. Grab a huge 100 gig data SIM for just £17 a month on the Mega Plan. And with no credit checks, speed restrictions or contracts tying you down, you can kick back with the best Black Friday deal around. Now that's Smarty. Search Smarty Mobile to find out more, but hurry, as this deal won't be around for long. See smarty.co.uk for terms.
At Lidl, we're big on all those Christmas parties. The season to be jolly. Try our Party Time Indian snack selection for only $2.99. And our Party Time mac and cheese bites for just $1.19. Big on a Christmas you can believe in. Now that's big on quality and always Lidl on price. Subject to availability, selected stores excludes an eye.
The S in Audi S-Line stands for many things like sporty, stylish, streamlined, and now seductively priced. Like the new Audi A4 S-Line, which you can now have from £359 per month, £2,154 initial rental. Test drive one at your local Audi centre, but you'll have to be swift. The offer ends soon. Search Audi S-Line. Audi, Vorsprung durch Technik. With 48-month contract hire, 10,000 miles per annum, 18s and over, subject to status, damage charges may apply, no ownership. Ordered by 31st of December 2019 from participating centres. Audi Financial Services, visit audi.co.uk.
If your ideas challenge the status quo, if you have advised people you had no right advising, if you built companies and lost companies and built them again, if you've been called a pillock, a dreamer, an innovator and a genius, if you thrive in the 11th hour, if you have blown it and completely nailed it in the same day, prepare for your next departure.
Do business right. Travel Virgin Atlantic.
Going, gone. Some things just don't hang around. Like a great deal in Tesco Mobile's best ever Black Friday event. Right now you can get the Samsung Galaxy S10 for just $29.99 a month. But this deal ends Sunday 1st of December. Catch it before it's gone. Tesco Mobile's best ever Black Friday event. Tesco Mobile. Every little helps.
Best ever Black Friday based on range of products in promotion was £35.99, now £29.99. Offer ends 1st of December. 36-month credit agreement, rolling monthly usage agreement, subject to status, phase policy applies. See tescomobile.com/terms.
To LeBron, slam dunk.
The NBA is on TuneIn Premium. Each week, TuneIn picks an NBA game you just can't miss. James Harden and the Houston Rockets are in LA to take on Kawhi Leonard and the Clippers.
Harden pulls back, trying to make it 11-2.
Kawhi Leonard is all over the place.
This Friday, the Houston Rockets are at the LA Clippers. Tip-off is at 8:30 p.m. Eastern. Search NBA on TuneIn to follow your favorite NBA team today.
From ESPN and the award-winning producers of The Sterling Affairs comes the latest season of 30 for 30 podcasts. 4 brand new stories of espionage.
He wanted this team to be the Barcelona of women's basketball.
Resilience.
I started to scream. I tried to get away.
Corruption.
It's the culture of win at all costs.
And rebirth.
How will we ever rebuild it?
30 for 30 Podcasts, Season 6. Listen in favorite 30 for 30 podcasts on TuneIn.
Hits, headlines, and breaking news 24 hours a day at Bloomberg.com, the Bloomberg Business app, and at TikTok on Twitter. This is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
Off earlier lows, but stocks are still in the red. TD Ameritrade soared on reports that Charles Schwab is in talks to buy that brokerage firm. The dollar's steady, treasuries are down, as China's chief trade negotiator said he was cautiously optimistic about reaching at least a phase 1 accord. We look at the numbers every 15 minutes of the trading day here on Bloomberg Radio. S&P 500 is now down 0.2%, down 7. The Dow's down 0.25%, down 72, and the Nasdaq's down 0.2%, down 18. The 10-year is down 3/30 seconds. The yield 1.75%. West Texas Intermediate crude is up 1.75% at 58.01 a barrel, while COMEX gold's down 0.4% at 14.68 even per ounce. The dollar-yen 108.55. The euro $1.10.68, and the British pound $1.29.10. Once again, the long-anticipated layoffs at WeWork have begun. Part of the struggling office-sharing company's plan to cut costs after staggering losses. WeWork said today's workforce reduction will affect 2,400 employees globally. That's a Bloomberg Business Flash. I'm Greg Jarrett.
This is Bloomberg Markets with Lisa Abramowitz and Paul Sweeney on Bloomberg Radio.
There is a consensus of sorts heading into 2020 that it will be a pretty good year, potentially even double digits yet again with respect to returns on U.S. equity indices, although perhaps Europe may outperform. But how contingent is this on a trade deal, on a lot of things that are all but certain? Joining us now, Caterina Simonetti. She is UBS Financial Services Private Wealth Advisor. Caterina, how much do you buy into this consensus?
Lisa, I'm absolutely buying into this consensus. And I think it's primarily because phase one, to me at least, it's a sure thing. Because when you look at the components that go into phase one, right, it's all the pieces that both parties basically agree on. And I will even say more so, the pieces that they need. So China agreed that to buying U.S. agricultural goods. That's a done deal, right? You know, in our case, we would like to see more currency transparency. We would like to have their markets open to our financial institutions. So despite of the news of last couple of days, I believe that phase one is going through. And I also think that market is almost taking it for granted. It's almost like it's bought in and, you know, already built into the consensus that it's going to happen. And I think when this happens, we're going to have a pretty positive reaction. My concern is not phase one, it's phase two. Because I think the components of phase two are significantly more important and also is something that we don't quite have an agreement on.
So as one of the other things, obviously moving the markets, number one, as Lisa raised, is the trade deal. That seems to be such really driving kind of market sentiment and market performance. Number two might be the Federal Reserve, which has been very accommodative through 2019. The market seems to be discounting maybe one more rate cut next year. Is that kind of your view and the view of UBS?
So we had a view that Fed is going to continue cutting rates. As a matter of fact, our view, even just from quite recently, was that they're going to cut another 75 basis points going into the next year. But we are holding back on that view now because we think that the benefit of what's happening right now is we had Fed that is extremely data-driven. And economic data that is coming in is not negative. You know, it's mixed, but it is still quite positive. So I think that Fed's reaction is going to be very much linked to the results of the trade negotiations. So if we have a positive outcome, if phase two starts off well, they might not cut. They might hold off because it is such a powerful tool in their arsenal, those rate cuts. I think they're going to be reactive to, you know, what they see.
All right. So if you buy into the consensus idea that things are going to be pretty good next year, how do you square that with surveys out of UBS showing that wealthy individuals are getting increasingly bearish?
That is very true. So I think that we have to look at the time frames. I believe there is going to be a very positive reaction to phase one. Once we get to phase two, it's an uncharted territory. It's quite frankly, you know, like the season two of Succession that I know so many of the radio hosts here seem to love. And it's a great show because it is uncharted territory. And we believe that there might be a sell-off. Now, we think that there might be a sell-off, but we think the severity of the sell-off will not be quite as extreme as markets anticipated. And as a matter of fact, you know, we think the likelihood of actual recession is very low. We think it might happen. Again, it all depends on the trade, but we think sell-off is likely. And that's what we're getting from our clients. When clients call us and they're concerned, they are concerned about the sell-off. They are concerned about the makeup of their portfolios. And they're asking us, you know, quite frankly, what to do in repositioning.
So what are you telling them now about positioning? Because we, you know, that the fourth quarter last year, particularly December, was such a shock to the marketplace, to the decline in the equity markets. And I'm sure as we get, you know, come up to that anniversary again this year, some of your clients are going to be calling and asking, how are you telling them to position themselves?
So we tell them to broader the time frame. And to your point, I think that the fourth quarter of last year was a really good practice. You know, it's almost like a really good test for all of us for what's to come. And there are several pieces in the portfolio design that come into play here. First of all, liquidity. So we tell clients, number one, going into turbulent markets, going into volatile markets, have enough liquidity on hand. Because then, you know, if we go into the prolonged period of volatility of negative markets, we will not have to liquidate their portfolios. The second side is, of course, focus on yield, focus on counter-cyclical asset classes like real estate, really changing around and rebalancing and repositioning fixed income portfolios. Because when people think that we need to, per se, recession-proof their portfolios, they focus on equity, but fixed income, quite frankly, is just as important.
Going forward, what's your biggest concern?
My biggest concern is that investors who are not prepared are going into this market with too much of a bullish outlook. And that concern goes back to, my days when I started as a new financial advisor in 99. And if you remember, the time frame was very similar when the talks were about possible upcoming recession. Right. But yet that was the best performing year. And people almost got a little cavalier, a little too brave and, overweight in equities.
Katerina Simonetti, thank you so much for joining us. Katerina Simonetti, UBS Financial Services Private Wealth Manager. Now, let's go down to our 99.1 studios. Nathan Hager for an impeachment update.
All right, Paul, thanks. This final public hearing of the week features two witnesses. Fiona Hill, former top Russia advisor on the National Security Council, who served a warning to lawmakers on the House Intelligence Committee.
In the course of this investigation, I would ask that you please not promote politically driven falsehoods that so clearly advance Russian interests. As Republicans and Democrats have agreed for decades, Ukraine is a valued partner of the United States. And it plays an important role in our national security.
And she says Russian security services are spreading a fictional narrative that Ukraine interfered in the 2016 election. Democratic counsel Daniel Goldman picked up on that point with the other witness, David Holmes, U.S. Embassy staffer in Kiev.
Why would it be to Vladimir Putin's advantage to promote this theory of Ukraine interference?
First of all, to deflect from the allegations of Russian interference. Second of all, to drive a wedge between the United States and Ukraine, which Russia wants to essentially get back into its sphere of influence.
And both witnesses testified there was no doubt when President Trump's lawyer, Rudy Giuliani, referred to investigations of Burisma Holdings, they were really talking about Joe Biden. More to come in 15 minutes. I'm Nathan Hager. This is Bloomberg.
This is a Bloomberg Market Minute. Stocks are edging lower this session as investors are weighing the latest trade developments. That includes a bill from Congress supporting Hong Kong protesters that could complicate a deal with China. Macy's shares dropping after the retailer cut its annual profit outlook for the second time this year, adding to worries that retailers could suffer a weak holiday season. Same-store sales, that's a key metric for retailers, fell 3.5% in the third quarter. Sanofi is mulling options for its consumer health business, which makes Allegra allergy tablets and Rolaids antacids. Bloomberg has learned that it could be worth as much as $30 billion. No decisions have been made. And Kroger is turning back to the basics of selling groceries after trying to sell too many new products and renovate too many stores at once. The Wall Street Journal reports the supermarket chain is planning to refurbish stores at a slower pace so that it can keep more stores fully operational. Courtney Donahoe, Bloomberg Radio.
Not completing high school is more of a social thing than it was an academic thing. Even though all these years have passed, I still had that longing to have my diploma.
At age 30, Carissa finished her high school diploma.
If you're even considering getting your high school diploma, you can do it.
No one gets a diploma alone. If you're thinking of finishing your high school diploma, you have help. Find free adult education classes near you at finishyourdiploma.org. That's finishyourdiploma.org. Brought to you by the Dollar General Literacy Foundation and the Ad Council.
What if you could keep the top economic experts in a conference room next to your office without having to feed them?
Do we need better optics? Do we need some substance?
Do CEOs care about ESG?
We have seen quite a lot of stimulus pumped into the system already.
It's the biggest warning yet about the financial risks of climate change.
Now there are more ways to hear us. Bloomberg Radio, the Bloomberg Business, Radio.com, and iHeartRadio apps, and at BloombergRadio.com. Bloomberg, the world is listening.
EasyJet fly to a wide range of ski destinations from London. So whether you want to go all out on a classic Alps experience or fancy something a little more low-key, it's smoother than ever, and you'll be there, well, you'll be there before you know it. Book now at easyjet.com.
On 3, our unlimited data is actually unlimited, like for reals. That means you can scroll and scroll and scroll through all the Black Friday deals.
Because we have no speed limits, no data caps, and you'll be 5G ready at no extra cost.
Wow, so many savings.
Our Black Friday deals are now on. Save up to £480. Switch to 3, in-store or online. See 3.co.uk/unlimited-data. Savings on selected phones on 24-month contracts. Ends 5th of December. Terms apply.
Going, gone.
Some things just don't hang around. Like a great deal in Tesco Mobile's best ever Black Friday event. Right now you can get the Samsung Galaxy S10 for just $29.99 a month. But this deal ends Sunday 1st of December. Catch it before it's gone. Tesco Mobile's best ever Black Friday event. Tesco Mobile. Every little helps.
Best ever Black Friday based on range of products in promotion was £35.99, now £29.99. Offer ends 1st of December. 36-month credit agreement, rolling monthly usage agreement, subject to status, phase policy applies. See tescomobile.com/terms.
From ESPN and the award-winning producers of The Sterling Affairs comes the latest season of 30 for 30 podcasts. 4 brand new stories of espionage.
He wanted this team to be the Barcelona of women's basketball.
Resilience.
I started to scream. I tried to get away.
Corruption.
It's the culture of win at all costs.
And rebirth.
How will we ever rebuild it?
30 for 30 podcasts, season 6. Listen in favorite 30 for 30 podcasts on TuneIn.
Introducing a new podcast, ESPN Daily. When you want to go beyond your feed, when you want to get inside the score, when you want to get behind the highlight, there's ESPN Daily. Go deeper into the stories of the moment. Get the exclusive access and insider perspective that only ESPN can give you. ESPN Daily, hosted by me, Mina Kimes. Listen now to ESPN Daily on TuneIn.
Like what you're listening to? Want to make getting back to it easier? Use the favorite button to keep track of the stations and podcasts you love on TuneIn. Just tap or click the heart icon to add it to your favorites. Then find all your go-to audio under the favorites tab. Pretty easy, right?
The puck drops. 12 players face off to win. The suspense is pure torture, but you wouldn't miss this for the world. TuneIn brings you every minute of the NHL season. Listen live to hockey when it matters most on TuneIn.
Far wing, elevates, triple bucket.
The war of the crowd. The shot clock ticks down. Will the ball go in? The suspense is pure torture, but you wouldn't miss this for the world. And the replays just don't cut it.
The sideline, the man bleeds for 3.
TuneIn Premium brings you every minute of the NBA season streaming live, so you can be there when it matters most. Hear it now, hear it live on TuneIn.
Pump fake in the lane, turnaround jumper from 8 feet is good on the
Search
right
NBA today to start listening.
Broadcasting live from the Bloomberg Interactive Brokers Studio in New York. Bloomberg 1130 to Washington, D.C. Bloomberg 99.1 to Boston. Bloomberg 106.1 to San Francisco. Bloomberg 960 to the country. Sirius XM Channel 119. And around the globe, the Bloomberg Business app and BloombergRadio.com. This is Bloomberg Markets.
Coming up, we'll try to parse through the confusing web of is it on or is it off trade talk discussions and headlines with Michael McKee, Bloomberg International Economics and Policy Correspondent. Plus, we'll take a look at Schwab's potential acquisition of TD Ameritrade and what this means for the broader brokerage industry. Right now, though, let's head over to Greg Jarrett for a Bloomberg Business Flash. Greg.
Down, Lisa, the 3 major U.S. indices this afternoon, lifting headlines in U.S.-China trade relations, and an argument between the world's 2 top economies over the Hong Kong protests is leading to uncertainty over the timing of a deal to end the dispute. Gary Cohn, former U.S. National Economic Council Director, tells Bloomberg he is not as concerned about the current bump in U.S.-China trade talks as some apparently are.
Well, first of all, I think we're having a trade skirmish. I think the 2 sides have some disagreements on trade. But if you look at what's going on, the 2 countries are functioning. There's a lot of trade still going back and forth. The United States is receiving the goods from China that we need to have a fully functioning economy. And our economy is functioning well.
We check the markets every 15 minutes throughout the trading day here on Bloomberg Radio. S&P 500's down 0.25%, down 8. Dow's down 0.3%, down 80. The Nasdaq's down 0.3%, down 26. The 10-year is down 5/30 seconds. The yield 1.76%. West Texas Intermediate crude oil is up 1 3/4% at 58.02 a barrel, while COMEX gold's down 0.4% at 14.6770 an ounce. The dollar yen 108.58. The euro $1.1068, and the British pound $1.2901. Current and former workers from 13 Illinois restaurants are now suing McDonald's for failing to adequately protect employees from customers who become violent. MCD's down 0.3%. That is a Bloomberg Business Flash. I'm Greg Jarrett.
This is Bloomberg Markets with Lisa Abramowitz and Paul Sweeney on Bloomberg Radio.
Bloomberg Markets is brought to you by Commonwealth Financial Network. For the sixth straight time, J.D. Power ranks Commonwealth #1 in independent advisor satisfaction among financial investment firms. Visit commonwealth.com to learn more. Let's get our daily dose of the trade update between the U.S. and China. To do that, we welcome Michael McKee, Bloomberg economics editor for Bloomberg Television. So, Michael, I guess the added wrinkle here is Hong Kong and the congressional move to kind of censure or kind of condemn what's going on in Hong Kong. How do you think that plays in?
Well, it clearly is something that upsets the Chinese. The reporting is that they have told the president not to sign the legislation. Kevin Cirilli has reported that the president is likely to sign it. And then where do we go from there? Does that invite a retaliation from the Chinese in terms of the trade talks? Do they then break them off and say they're not going ahead? Or if they want to retaliate, do they do it in some other area unrelated? You look at what's happened with Huawei over the months, and while a lot of people tend to conflate the two countries have pretty much kept them as separate issues at the moment. One is not contingent on the other. So the same thing could happen with Hong Kong. We just don't know.
What are you looking for at this point to figure out, heading into December 15th, whether this phase one deal is a go?
Same thing I've been looking at all along, an announcement from China that this phase one deal is a go. And I say that because if the Chinese say it is, then it probably will be. If this administration says it is, we've heard them say that many times and it doesn't happen.
How much credence do you put into headlines that say that the U.S. is considering pushing back the December 15th tariffs to possibly March in order to allow a prolonged negotiation over phase one?
Well, I mean, there you're talking about the president again conceding defeat and not getting the agreement that he wanted. So does he do that? Again, there's a lot of moving pieces here, Hong Kong just being one of them. If the Chinese were to make him angry in their reaction, if he signs the legislation, how does he react to that? We have seen him get angry and just go ahead and impose tariffs. He did that in August. So it's really impossible to say. People who have watched these negotiations suggest that the game theory is that the Chinese are going to be requesting that he do that in order to keep negotiating, and that he would, and that then the Chinese may decide to just stop the clock and wait till the election and see what happens. So we really don't know at this point. The latest word out of China was encouraging in the tea leaf reading kind of a portion of what we do, and that there was a report that Liu He, the chief Chinese negotiator, invited members of the U.S. negotiating team over to Beijing to continue talks. That's an added wrinkle in the sense that the fact that they have to have another high-level meeting to get anywhere, but the fact that he would invite them, on the other hand, could be seen as good news.
We're going to get some clarity on the congressional resolution, i.e. it's going to get to the president's desk, I'm understanding, very shortly. So is the expectation is that this is a question of a number of days? This is something that will be acted on before the December 15th? Okay.
Yeah, the House basically decided to force the issue. The Senate and the House both passed separate bills that accomplished the same thing, that put U.S. policy, economic and trade policy towards Hong Kong on an annual review basis. There were some minor language differences between the two that would ordinarily go to conference committee, but the House, Nancy Pelosi, decided we'll just do the Senate bill. So the House passes the Senate bill, then it's done legislatively, and it goes to the White House and could go almost immediately, and then the president will face a decision. He has a certain number of days, but I want to say something like 15 days to decide whether he's going to sign a bill or not. But I would assume that the political pressure will be such that he'll have to make a decision before that. The issue being that both houses passed the legislation by unanimous consent, and therefore there's a veto-proof majority. So he either signs it and angers the Chinese, or vetoes it and angers members of Congress. He has to choose.
He has to choose. Michael McKee, thank you so much for joining us. Michael McKee, Bloomberg International Economics and Policy Correspondent, giving us the latest on the U.S.-China trade negotiations, on again, off again, but they appear to be moving forward. And, of course, probably the next data point will be whether President Trump signs this congressional resolution.
Yeah, will it, though? I mean, I think that people are basically saying that the trade negotiation, I'll get it out, I promise. It's almost Friday. That the trade negotiators will try to put aside the Hong Kong issue and have so far. And my question is, when does that change? What's sort of the threshold? Is there the political appetite among both the Republicans and the Democrats to take a move that would push President Trump toward a even more politically sensitive issue? But right now, people are saying this is largely symbolic, and China is treating it as such.
Yeah, it's interesting. Right now, I agree the negotiators probably are trying their very best to keep it the two issues separate, but I'm wondering if President Trump and President Xi just can't help themselves, and one of them will make it, kind of tie the two together, either wittingly or unwittingly, and that could, in fact, set back the discussion. So we'll have to see how this plays out. But again, it's over the next several days, as Michael McKee was suggesting, that this will have to be a decision. And then, of course, we come up to the December 15th tariffs, another decision for the U.S. Right now, let's head down to our 99.1 studios in Washington, D.C. for world and national headlines with Nathan Hager. Nathan.
Paul will begin with breaking news. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu will stand trial for bribery and fraud. Israel's Justice Ministry just announced that in a statement that paints a picture of a leader who took gifts from wealthy friends and sacrificed the integrity of his office to win favorable media coverage. Israel is no stranger to seeing its leaders under investigation, but this will be the first time a sitting prime minister has faced charges. Back here in Washington, Democrats have had their initial round of questions for today's witnesses in the House impeachment inquiry. The Intelligence Committee has now recessed for votes on the House floor. Let's get the very latest live from Bloomberg's Irv Chapman on Capitol Hill. Irv.
Nathan, Fiona Hill, the Russia expert on the National Security Staff, was asked to describe the White House meeting between Ukrainian officials, Ambassador Gordon Sondland, Chief of Staff Mick Mulvaney, and her boss, John Bolton. When Bolton quit the meeting, he asked Hill to follow the others when they moved to another room.
He wanted to know exactly what was being said. And when I came back and related it to him, he had some very specific instruction for me. I had to go to the lawyers, to John Eisenberg. You tell Eisenberg, Ambassador Bolton told me, that I am not part of whatever drug deal Mulvaney and Sondland are cooking up.
Bolton meant, Hill said, the deal for a White House summit for Ukrainian President Zelensky in return for the investigations President Trump demanded. Nathan?
All right, that's Bloomberg's Irv Chapman with us on Capitol Hill. Thanks, Irv. Global news 24 hours a day, on air and at TikTok, on Twitter, powered by more than 2,700 journalists and analysts in more than 120 countries. This is Bloomberg.
Have you wanted to speak a new language, but you thought it'd be too hard or take too much time? Then go to Babbel.com, download the app, and try it for free. In just 15 minutes a day, you'll be on your way to speaking a new language in just a few weeks. And right now, you can try Babbel for free. Babbel starts out teaching you words and phrases by matching them with pictures. You won't believe how easy the interactive program is. Soon the sentences get a little bigger, and before you know it, you're having simulated conversations voiced by native speakers. And because Babbel is crafted by language experts and uses the spaced repetition method, in just 10 to 15 minutes a day, you'll be speaking the language of your choice with real confidence. With Babbel, you can speak a language. Just go to Babbel.com and start your first lesson in the language of your choice for free. Download the Babbel app or go to Babbel.com and try it for free. That's Babbel.com.
Why has J.D. Power ranked Commonwealth Financial Network #1 in independent advisor satisfaction among financial investment firms for the 6th straight time? We think it comes down to one thing: you. Because it's your input and feedback that keeps us focused on what's most important to you and your clients and continually pushes us to be the best we can be. Maybe that's why we receive top marks in every category of the J.D. Power 2019 Advisor Satisfaction Survey. They named us #1 in client support, #1 in firm leadership, #1 in operational support, #1 in compensation, #1 in professional development support, and #1 in technology support. Ready to partner with the best? Call Commonwealth at 866-462-3638 or visit commonwealth.com and feel the power. Member FINRA SIPC, a registered investment advisor. For 2019 J.D. Power award information, visit jdpower.com/awards.
In-depth analysis.
'Tis the season to be hunched over your laptop. Not on our watch. In real life, you can fill your senses and your baskets. Feel all the sights, sounds, lols, and OMGs. Wear laughing emojis on actual smiley faces. Batteries running low. Take the kids to Santa's Grotto. In real life, you can find just the right present using the most advanced search engine in the world. Your eyes. We heart in real life. Brent Cross, London. Free parking for all sleighs and cars.
On 3, our unlimited data is actually unlimited, like for reals. That means you can scroll and scroll and scroll through all the Black Friday deals.
Because we have no speed limits, no data caps, and you'll be 5G ready at no extra cost.
Wow, so many savings.
Our Black Friday deals are now on. Save up to £480. Switch to 3, in-store or online. See 3.co.uk/unlimited-data. Savings on selected phones on 24-month contracts. Ends 5th of December. Terms apply.
Going, gone. Some things just don't hang around. Like a great deal in Tesco Mobile's best ever Black Friday event. Right now you can get the Samsung Galaxy S10 for just $29.99 a month. But this deal ends Sunday 1st of December. Catch it before it's gone. Tesco Mobile's best ever Black Friday event. Tesco Mobile. Every little helps.
Best ever Black Friday based on range of products in promotion was £35.99, now £29.99. Offer ends 1st of December. 36-month credit agreement, rolling monthly usage agreement, subject to status, phase policy applies. See tescomobile.com/terms.
At TUI, we can help you find the perfect getaway for two. We fly to over 70 destinations worldwide, so wherever you have in mind, we'll help you get there. Book now and choose from thousands of holidays under $399 per person and pay £0 deposit when paying with direct debit. Book online or in store with one of our travel experts. At TUI, we cross the T's, dot the I's and put you in the middle. Offer available on selected holidays for a limited time and subject to availability. Booking T's and C's apply. At All Protected.
You're listening to TuneIn, where you can hear all the audio you love in one place. Live NFL games, the hottest music, breaking news, and podcasts. Push play and go about your day, only on TuneIn.
Cutting for the net, scores! On the goal line, Marchand scores!
Hockey fans, the 2019-20 NHL season is here.
And tucks it home!
And with this team, it's really fun to be a part of a team like that.
And you can hear the action live on TuneIn Premium. From regular season action to the All-Star Game and through the Stanley Cup in June. Hear the home and away call for every game, for every team live. At home or on the go, never miss a game with the NHL on TuneIn Premium.
Upgrade today. College football is live on TuneIn. Listen for free to games from more than 140 schools all season long.
To the 10, all the way to the checkerboard. But he stays on his feet and scores.
Number 2 Ohio State looks to clinch the Big Ten Eastern Title Division outright and a spot in the Big Ten Conference Championship game as they host the 9th-ranked Penn State Nittany Lions in Columbus. This Saturday at 12 p.m. Eastern. Listen to every call and every game of your school all season long for free on TuneIn. Penn State at Ohio State. Just search college to listen today.
Introducing a new podcast, ESPN Daily. When you want to go beyond your feed, when you want to get inside the score, when you want to get behind the highlight, there's ESPN Daily. Go deeper into the stories of the moment. Get the exclusive access and insider perspective that only ESPN can give you. ESPN Daily, hosted by me, Mina Kimes. Listen now to ESPN Daily on TuneIn.
From ESPN and the award-winning producers of The Sterling Affairs comes the latest season of 30 for 30 podcasts. 4 brand new stories of espionage.
He wanted this team to be the Barcelona of women's basketball.
Resilience.
I started to scream. I tried to get away.
Corruption.
It's the culture of win at all costs.
And rebirth.
How will we ever rebuild it?
30 for 30 podcasts, season 6. Listen now to 30 for 30 podcasts on TuneIn.
Headlines and breaking news 24 hours a day at Bloomberg.com, the Bloomberg Business app, and at TikTok on Twitter. This is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
U.S. stocks are down. We had losses in Europe and Asia as well. All this on signs of continuing tension between Beijing and Washington as the superpowers go back and forth over that trade deal. We check the numbers every 15 minutes throughout the trading day here on Bloomberg Radio. S&P 500's down 0.25%, down 7. The Dow's down 0.25%, down 72. And the Nasdaq's down 0.3%, down 25. The 10-year is down 5/32. The yield 1.76%. West Texas Intermediate crude is up 1.75% at $58 even a barrel. COMEX gold is down 0.4% at $14.6870 an ounce. The dollar yen 108.56. The euro $1.10.68. British pound, the dollar 29.09. Long anticipated layoffs at WeWork have begun. The reductions will affect 2,400 employees globally so far. That's a Bloomberg Business Flash. I'm Greg Jarrett.
You're listening to Bloomberg Markets with Lisa Abramowitz and Paul Sweeney on Bloomberg Radio.
Bloomberg Markets is brought to you by the Jewish Communal Fund. JCF's donor-advised fund is the smart choice to manage your philanthropy. Open a JCF fund now to lock in a 2019 tax deduction. Visit jcfny.org. It is the deal of the day. Charles Schwab potentially buying TD Ameritrade. Both companies have not come out to confirm the reports in a number of media outlets, although people familiar with the matter say that a deal could be announced as soon as Thursday. You could see Schwab shares up 7.8%. TD Ameritrade's shares also surging 21%. Joining us now to talk about the logic of this deal in a no-fee era is our own David Ritter of Bloomberg Intelligence. David, what is the goal in combining these two companies?
Yeah, well, with pressure on fees and not just stock trading fees, but asset management fees and product fees, the goal is to get bigger, right? To have the scale to absorb some of those revenue pressures and also increase your ability to cross-sell. In this case, both Schwab and TD Ameritrade are leading providers to independent financial advisors. So basically, these are folks that are leaving, the major brokerages to go out on their own, and so they will get themselves onto the Schwab platform or the TD Ameritrade platform and manage their accounts through there, and also custody their client assets. So this kind of combines two of the biggest players there, and for Schwab, it'll add a base of more active traders to their mix of clients. So it makes sense. I think what remains to be seen is, what's the opportunity for cost savings in this merger, either from merging platforms or closing redundant branch offices. That's something we'll have to see, because it wasn't, if you believe the reported deal number, it's not a very big premium. It wouldn't even get TD Ameritrade back to where it traded in late September.
So, David, one of the big issues, I would think you characterize these as two of the leading e-trading companies, would be antitrust. What's the risk here?
Yeah, there is risk. I don't think it's on the retail side, because there are so many places now where you can get free stock and ETF trades that I think that's not the bigger concern. The bigger concern is on the institutional side, the advisor side, which I just mentioned. Schwab is the biggest player there. Based on data that I got from one of their presentations, they have about a 30% share of that market. Fidelity's another real big player. And TD Ameritrade is third place, but what's interesting is 40% market share in just a range of other smaller players. So it's still a pretty fragmented business, but I think the risk would be probably on that independent financial advisor business.
What's the long-term goal here, David? Is it just a matter of cost-cutting until a new model can be found, or is there some profit goal here with respect to the auxiliary services catering to people that actually still do charge fees?
Yeah, honestly, I think they're all still trying to figure that out, right? Schwab is considering doing more lending to their customers, both the advisors and the consumers.
Wait, just to be clear, this is consumer lending like credit card loans, auto loans, or would this be leverage for the financial purchases, both?
It's both, right? So they already do the margin lending for the traders. So this would be more unsecured consumer lending. So that's not going to be a way to capture a higher multiple for the stock, for sure, because now all of a sudden you're more like a true bank. They're a big bank now, but basically they're investing the excess cash in brokerage accounts in safe assets like treasuries and the like, and they do some margin lending, but this would be getting higher yield for those deposits in consumer loans, but then that's a whole other set of risk, and you could ask Goldman Sachs how easy it is to start up a consumer bank. It's really hard.
Right.
It's really hard, and it makes them a whole different type of company. So that's one thing they've actually been talking about out loud, which is hard to believe. And then, how else do we monetize either the advisor relationship or the consumer relationship? They talked about maybe more proprietary asset management products, but again, that business is all going passive, and the fee rates are coming down there too. So for now, anyway, it's a big cost play. It's hard to see how you get bigger revenue boost out of combining the two.
What does this mean for E-Trade? Do they need to do something here? It seems like they're left out.
Yeah, they're kind of left at the altar. What did I tell you guys last week? There were 150 brokers back in 2000.
Right.
We're dwindling down to the ones we can count on one hand. Yeah, they're kind of, who knows? I mean, I think Fidelity could play a role here at some point. E-Trade has several million customers, several million active accounts. There's definitely value there because it's very expensive to acquire a new account. So that's Fidelity could certainly be a player, even a big bank. I mean, Merrill Edge is B of A's sort of, self-directed investing platform. They may like to make that bigger. I mean, I wouldn't have said that a few years ago, but now it seems like all the big banks are diversifying, getting back into retail brokerage again.
David Ritter, thank you so much for joining us, giving us your thoughts on what could be a potential tie-up between Charles Schwab and TD Ameritrade, really consolidating even further the online brokerage business.
Becoming banks, taking more risk?
Yep.
It just is an interesting question, the risk versus reward there, given the capital constraints.
Yes.
And the competition.
Yeah, and when you talked about Schwab, when he went to that zero commission, again, David Ritter was on talking to us about that deal, and he said, you're going to see Schwab get into more riskier, more bank-like activity. So very interesting. Right now, let's head down to our 99.1 studios in Washington, D.C. to get an impeachment update with Nathan Hager. Nathan.
Paul, this hearing before the House Intelligence Committee is in recess now, but two witnesses have been appearing before lawmakers. Fiona Hill used to advise the president on Russia in the National Security Council, and she elaborated on her testimony from closed-door deposition that Rudy Giuliani was called a hand grenade.
He was frequently on television making quite incendiary remarks about everyone involved in this, and that he was clearly pushing forward issues and ideas that would, probably come back to haunt us. And in fact, I think that's where we are today.
And David Holmes elaborated on Giuliani's influence on Ukraine policy. He's a foreign service officer at the U.S. Embassy in Kiev.
Beginning in March 2019, the situation at the embassy and in Ukraine changed dramatically. Specifically, the three priorities of security, economy, and justice, and our support for Ukrainian democratic resistance to Russian aggression became overshadowed by a political agenda promoted by former New York City Mayor Rudy Giuliani and a cadre of officials operating with a direct channel to the White House.
And both Holmes and Hill say they had no doubt when Giuliani talked about investigating Burisma Holdings, he really meant Joe Biden and his son Hunter, who sat on Burisma's board. We have more coming up on Bloomberg Balance of Power with David Weston, and Bloomberg Terminal customers can watch the hearings at Live Go. I'm Nathan Hager, and this is Bloomberg.
In addition to Bloomberg Radio, you can catch the latest news and biggest newsmakers on Bloomberg Television. Look for us on DirecTV Channel 353 or check your local listings.
The world at Lidl, we're big on all those Christmas parties. The season to be jolly. Try our Party Time Indian snack selection for only $2.99. And our Party Time mac and cheese bites for just $1.19. Big on a Christmas you can believe in. Now that's big on quality and always Lidl on price. Subject to availability, selected stores excludes an eye.
It's hard to enjoy your daily yoga routine when your mind is on your next VAT return and how to avoid the usual mistakes. But with QuickBooks, the new VAT Smart Scan technology does the work for you. As the deadline approaches, it checks for duplicates, looks for anomalies, and reviews VAT codes. So your biggest struggle is touching your forehead with your ankle.
Search for QuickBooks, perfect for making tax digital. QuickBooks, backing you.
If your ideas challenge the status quo, if you have advised people you had no right advising, if you built companies and lost companies and built them again, if you've been called a pillock, a dreamer, an innovator and a genius, if you thrive in the 11th hour, if you have blown it and completely nailed it in the same day, prepare for your next departure.
Do business right. Travel Virgin Atlantic.
Going, gone.
Some things just don't hang around. Like a great deal in Tesco Mobile's best ever Black Friday event. Right now you can get the Samsung Galaxy S10 for just $29.99 a month. But this deal ends Sunday 1st of December. Catch it before it's gone. Tesco Mobile's best ever Black Friday event. Tesco Mobile. Every little helps.
Best ever Black Friday based on range of products in promotion was £35.99, now £29.99. Offer ends 1st of December. 36-month credit agreement, rolling monthly usage agreement, subject to status, phase policy applies. See tescomobile.com/terms.
I don't need a Christmas miracle, just a little wow factor.
Fixing up your kitchen for the festive season? Get to B&Q. We've all you need to impress your guests and Santa, from upgrading your lighting or appliances to choosing new taps like the Xanthi Chrome Effect Mixer Tap for just £70. Bring the magic home with B&Q.
Mate, this van's suspension is rubbish.
Tell me about it.
Even the radio's had it.
I know, but I'd get nothing if I scrapped it.
Actually, you can get at least £2,000 off a new Ford for it.
You're kidding.
With Ford's new for old scrappage scheme, you can get between £2,000 and £6,250 off a new Ford van if you scrap an eligible vehicle with us responsibly. Also, there's 0% APR representative on Ford Acquire. Ford Commercial Vehicles. Backbone of Britain. Search Ford Scrappage. Exclusions apply. Contract and register by 31st of December 2019 at participating dealers. Agent ownership criteria apply to scrappage vehicle. Subject to status. Free post full credit. Deposit restrictions apply.
The world, 24 hours a day at Bloomberg.com, on the Bloomberg Business app, and at TikTok on Twitter. This is Bloomberg Radio.
From Bloomberg World Headquarters in New York to our TV and radio audiences worldwide, I'm David Weston, and welcome to Balance of Power, where the world of politics meets the world of business. On the brief today, Tyler Pager from Atlanta on last night's Democratic debate, from Washington, Anna Edgerton on the last impeachment hearings of the month, and also in Washington, Jordan Fabian on President Trump cozying up maybe to the tech community. So first, let's start with Tyler Pager out in Atlanta. Tyler, we watched the debate last night, but was it really a debate or was it just a series of presentations from candidates?
Yeah, I would say this debate definitely wasn't, didn't have as many fireworks as we've seen in the past. I think the impeachment drama in Washington kind of took the front row seat here, and the Democrats on stage disagreed on certain things, but really held most of their fire for President Trump.
So, Tyler, this is my big question when I watch that. The goal should be, I assume, to get somebody to vote for one of the candidates on the stage other than President Trump, to try to turn President Trump out of office. What was the argument they were making that would get done? Because it seemed to be much more sort of small ball, as it were.
Yeah, this debate definitely didn't feature some of the biggest fault lines in the Democratic primary. We've seen in the past extended and lengthy debates over health care, over taxes. Those are things that really divide the Democratic Party. Last night it was more presenting a united front on certain issues like climate change, where they really do have a lot of disagreements with President Trump, but agree together mostly on how to deal with that issue.
Okay, Tyler, thank you so much for reporting from Atlanta. Now we go to Anna Edgerton down in Washington about the thing that actually Tyler said sort of eclipsed the debate, and that's the impeachment hearing. We have the last day, we think, today, Anna?
Last day of public hearings for what's scheduled so far. This will conclude the part that happens in the Intelligence Committee, although they could have some additional closed-door depositions. Then it will move into the Judiciary Committee, where they will actually hear the articles of impeachment written up by the House and also allow President Trump to present his defense.
At the same time, we heard from Ambassador Sondland yesterday, and there was a lot of, well, the president didn't say that directly to me. Can they really go forward with the articles of impeachment without getting some of the key players, like Mr. Bolton, for example, to show up and testify what happened?
Well, one of Bolton's close aides, Fiona Hill, is testifying today, so we are getting a little bit of her testimony from meetings that she actually participated in. Now, you were right that these people didn't actually communicate directly with President Trump, although Gordon Sondland did have some conversation with Trump, not where he actually said the words quid pro quo. That's up to a lot of the interpretation of the witnesses. So we actually have the same facts that Republicans and Democrats are looking at, but they're interpreting them differently. Republicans are saying there was no explicit quid pro quo. Democrats are saying there was a very clearly an exchange of this for that, which is literally what quid pro quo means.
And as far as you can tell, is anyone changing their mind up on Capitol Hill?
No, and that's the interesting thing. We've seen very little movement from Democrats or Republicans. So far, it looks like no House Republicans will vote for this impeachment if they do go forward with articles of impeachment.
Okay, thank you so much to Anna Edgerton reporting today from Washington. And now we go to Jordan Fabian, who is also in Washington. Jordan, it appeared that President Trump was warming a little bit to the tech community, for example, in Texas yesterday when he met with Tim Cook at an Apple plant.
That's right, David. Trump and Tim Cook have a relationship going back a couple of years now, and both, I would say, got something out of yesterday's visit. Trump can highlight his jobs agenda by pointing to the fact that Apple's manufacturing the Mac Pro in Austin, and Tim Cook was able to get some FaceTime with the president as his company looks to avoid tariffs that came down on China in September, as well as a new round that are due to come up in December if the U.S. and China can't agree to this phase one trade deal that's been bandied about.
And it wasn't just Tim Cook who got FaceTime with the president. We also have reports now that Mark Zuckerberg had dinner with the president, evidently at the White House with Peter Thiel.
Yeah, for some reason, the White House didn't disclose this dinner. It was reported today. We don't know what the tech leaders discussed with the president, but we do know that there's been this Facebook ad policy that's been much debated in Washington related to political ads. It's possible that came up. Facebook's trying to roll out this cryptocurrency Libra. That's another possible topic. And Peter Thiel is a conservative, a Trump supporter, and it's possible he's acting as sort of Trump Sherpa to the tech community, at least in terms of Facebook, on which he also sits on the board.
Okay, many thanks to Jordan Fabian of Bloomberg News down in Washington. And now it's time to get that check on how the markets are doing in light of today's stories. Joining us now is Abigail Doolittle. So how are we doing today? Down a little bit. I see some red.
Yeah, it's starting to really stand out because we've been in this slow melt up for week after week, all these all-time highs. And now we're looking at 3 down days for the S&P 500, the worst stretch going back to early October. A modest decline over that time period, but nonetheless, it does seem to be a little bit of a trend shift that stands out. It probably on trade, as we've been talking about. Investors still worried that maybe this phase one trade deal does not get done, and if those tariffs kick in by any chance on December 15th, it could be a material change to the economy. Something interesting, though, is that the U.S. did lighten up a little bit on Huawei, and that was just reported on today. And so that could be some sort of a sign that maybe even behind the scenes, the negotiations are perhaps a little bit better than we're hearing right now. Maybe a deal does get done, but just that uncertainty that investors are contending with.
And we talked yesterday about the Hong Kong legislation that really looked like it would be quite hostile to China. China did not react well to it. There is a question whether that actually may give President Trump more leverage with China to extract a deal. I mean, it's not clear exactly which way it cuts.
That's an interesting point for sure. That will be interesting to see whether or not that does give him leverage. And based on my knowledge, that is always what he's looking for, to kind of try to strong arm. But I would have to think that it would actually be a real sticking point, perhaps, between the two countries. And maybe that's why that Huawei loosening up occurred, so that on the surface, it appears that we're being tough, but beneath the surface, we're actually giving something that's economic. I don't know. It's difficult to know. But we do have, today we actually have bonds down a little bit, but over the longer time period, they have been up, which speaks to this uncertainty. Investors really wanting something definitive to happen, some sort of real news.
Yeah, another day of trade in the markets.
Yes.
Yet another day.
Yet another.
Thank you so much to Abigail Doolittle. And now we're going to turn to Mark Crumpton. He's here with Bloomberg First Word News.
David, thank you. As our colleague Anna Edgerton told us moments ago, Fiona Hill and David Holmes are testifying on day 5 of impeachment hearings. Holmes revealed envoy William Taylor described a June 28th call with Ukraine's president as having strings attached with regard to an Oval Office visit. He also said he overheard a call 2 days earlier between President Trump and Gordon Sondland. Afterwards, Sondland told Holmes, using an expletive, that the president did not care about Ukraine. As we've been reporting, Democratic presidential candidates squared off in last night's debate in Atlanta. Pete Buttigieg climb in recent polls face tough criticism on stage from Amy Klobuchar, Tulsi Gabbard, and Kamala Harris. They slammed him for lack of experience and struggles connecting with African-American voters. The attacks, however, elevated him. He was third in the number of words spoken, just behind former Vice President Joe Biden and Senator Elizabeth Warren. In the UK, after a contentious debate with his opponent Tuesday, Labour Party leader Jeremy Corbyn has now announced a radical package of new taxes on business and the wealthy. They include a financial transaction tax, a higher corporation tax, and a windfall tax on oil companies. Plus, the top 5% of earners would also pay more. At the launch of Labour's manifesto in central England today, he went on the attack against his critics.
If the bankers, billionaires and the establishment thought we represented politics as usual, then we could be bought off that nothing was really going to change. They wouldn't attack us so ferociously. Why bother? But they know we mean what we say. They know we will deliver our plans, which is why they want to stop us being elected.
The Labour Party says it would use the new tax revenue for more than $100 billion in public spending. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu will stand trial for bribery and fraud. It's an unprecedented development that could doom his career and shape the political crisis that's gripped Israel for much of the year. It's the first time a sitting prime minister would be put in the dock. Netanyahu says he won't resign. He'd also have to if he were to be convicted and exhaust all avenues of appeal. Global news 24 hours a day, on air and at TikTok on Twitter, powered by more than 2,700 journalists and analysts in over 120 countries. I'm Mark Crumpton. This is Bloomberg. David?
Thanks very much, Mark. Coming up here, Democrats returned to the debate stage against the backdrop of impeachment yesterday, while the newly crowned Iowa frontrunner emerged virtually unscathed. We talk with Kyle Kondik of Larry Sabato's Crystal Ball for his read. That's next. This is Balance of Power on Bloomberg Television and on radio.
One in 10 Londoners surveyed said they'll give more to charity in the next 12 months. Are you one of them? At CAF, we help generous people like you support their favourite charities by making giving simple. And we provide charities with the tools they need to perform at their best. So together, we can make a bigger difference for our communities. We're a charity and a champion for better giving. We are CAF, and we make giving count. Visit cafonline.org to find out more.
EasyJet fly to a wide range of ski destinations from London. So whether you want to go all out on a classic Alps experience or fancy something a little more low-key, it's smoother than ever, and you'll be there, well, you'll be there before you know it. Book now at easyjet.com.
Every day is a little
Disney's Frozen 2. Anna, Elsa, Kristoff, Sven. This Friday, the worldwide phenomenon returns, captivating critics everywhere.
I believe in you, Elsa, more than anyone or anything.
With big laughs and even bigger songs. Disney's Frozen 2 in cinemas Friday.
I'll bring the snacks!
Each day you grab the keys, pop them in the ignition, and off you go without a second thought. But what if the unpredictable happens and you wake up with something like a flat battery? You'd have been better off if someone had checked it all out, right? But that's going to cost you. What if the cost was nothing? Book a free checkup online and our experts will complete a 29-point visual check and top up vital fluids, no matter what make of vehicle you own. And we're so confident in our checks, we'll also give you 20% off your next service. How's that for peace of mind? Visit your local Vauxhall retailer and quote VX20. T's and C's apply.
Going, gone.
Some things just don't hang around, like a great deal in Tesco Mobile's best ever Black Friday event. Right now you can get the Samsung Galaxy S10 for just $29.99 a month. But this deal ends Sunday 1st of December. Catch it before it's gone. Tesco Mobile's best ever Black Friday event. Tesco Mobile. Every little helps.
Best ever Black Friday based on range of products in promotion was £35.99, now £29.99. Offer ends 1st of December. 36-month credit agreement, rolling monthly usage agreement, subject to status, phase, policy applies. See tescomobile.com/terms.
No! The next bus is 18 minutes away.
Look, there's a cab.
We really shouldn't.
Taxi!
I mean, we ate out last night.
Just get in. We're getting soaked.
You're such a bad influence.
You can't always control what you spend, but you can save as you spend with Save the Change. When you use your Lloyds Bank debit card, we'll round up the amount to the next pound and transfer the difference to your nominated Lloyds Bank savings account. Feel in control every day with our mobile banking app. Lloyds Bank, by your side. T's and C's apply.
Don't want to miss a second of your NFL team's next matchup? Let TuneIn remind you. Just make sure notifications are enabled on your phone and search for your team profile on the TuneIn app. Then, find the game you want under Events and tap Notify Me. We'll send you an alert as soon as live coverage begins.
In case you didn't know, TuneIn lets you listen to the same radio stations you pick up on your home or car radio, except you can hear them from anywhere. If you want to find a station from somewhere else in the world, navigate to the By Location section under Browse. Keep exploring with TuneIn.
Into the end zone, touchdown.
NFL fans, hear every live game on TuneIn Premium.
He runs inside, he's got a 10, 5, touchdown!
Today, hear the home and away call as the Indianapolis Colts visit the Houston Texans at 8:20 p.m. Eastern.
Firing, caught, 10, 5, touchdown!
At home or on the go, hear the home and away call of every NFL game this season on TuneIn Premium. Upgrade today. College football is live on TuneIn. Listen for free to games from more than 140 schools all season long.
To the 10, all the way to the checkerboard. Somebody stays on his feet and scores.
Number 2 Ohio State looks to clinch the Big Ten Eastern Title Division outright and a spot in the Big Ten Conference Championship game as they host the 9th-ranked Penn State Nittany Lions in Columbus. This Saturday at 12 p.m. Eastern. Listen to every call and every game of your school all season long for free on TuneIn. Penn State at Ohio State. Just search college to listen today.
From ESPN and the award-winning producers of The Sterling Affairs comes the latest season of 30 for 30 podcasts. 4 brand new stories of espionage.
He wanted this team to be the Barcelona of women's basketball.
Resilience.
I started to scream. I tried to get away.
Corruption.
It's the culture of win at all costs.
And rebirth.
How will we ever rebuild it?
30 for 30 podcasts, season 6. Listen in favorite 30 for 30 podcasts on TuneIn.
Want to know what's happening in right now? The latest headlines are just a tap away with Fox News Talk on TuneIn. When news breaks, get up-to-the-minute coverage on developing stories from around the world. Plus, hear all the Fox shows you watch on your TV. Listen to Fox News Talk around the clock on TuneIn.
The puck drops. 12 players face off to win. The suspense is pure torture, but you wouldn't miss this for the world. TuneIn brings you every minute of the NHL season. Listen live to hockey when it matters most on TuneIn.
I think that there was, to the previous point that you made, there wasn't much of a debate in that there wasn't a lot of attacks going on amongst the candidates. It seems like the front runners, namely Biden, Warren, Sanders, and now Pete Buttigieg, who seems to be leading in Iowa, although is clearly trailing nationally, the candidates weren't really mixing it up all that much. And one wonders if they should be doing that, although the candidates might look at it and say, well, if I attack one of the other candidates, it might not actually benefit me. It might just benefit someone else. I mean, when you've got such a huge field and huge debate stage, there's a lot of game theory going on. And I think that some of these candidates are deciding that they're better off not attacking than attacking. And that may change by the time we get to when the voting actually starts.
We're talking with Kyle Kondik of Savato's Crystal Ball. Well, let's go to that point exactly, because in each of the debates, the media has said there's one person we have to target, whether it's Vice President Biden or whether it's Elizabeth Warren, because she's the front runner. Last night it was thought it was Pete Buttigieg, the mayor. And yet I didn't see them really put the crosshairs on him. Why is that?
Again, maybe the candidates just don't feel like there's much benefit to them doing that. Although I do feel like ultimately when the voting gets close here, that you're going to have to see sustained attacks by the candidates on one another in these debates, and also perhaps more importantly in terms of campaign messaging and in television advertising. But again, maybe these candidates just don't really see much of a point to doing that. And it's interesting. I mean, I think that this sort of sedate stage, I think actually benefits Joe Biden, the front runner, in that he's continually been the polling leader. And actually, it seemed like Elizabeth Warren might be catching up to him nationally. And that's really changed in the last few weeks, in that Biden has sort of reestablished himself as the as the polling leader. And frankly, I didn't think Biden had that great of a night. I think that his mistake in not realizing that basically that Kamala Harris was also an elected African American senator was kind of embarrassing to him. But if in fact the debate isn't actually going to be that widely dissected today, and maybe there's more of impeachment kind of taking over in terms of the news coverage, I think that's actually good for Biden because there's less of a focus on what seemed to me kind of to be an obvious mistake that he made last night.
So we have, as I understand, at least one more debate coming before the Iowa caucuses. But between now and the Iowa caucuses, what is going to have somebody win or lose? How can they change their position? I mean, Pete Buttigieg at this point reportedly is up about 9 points now in Iowa. If you were trying to overtake him, what could you do to get that accomplished?
A part of, I think, the reason why Buttigieg is doing well in Iowa now is that he has been advertising pretty heavily, and Buttigieg is pretty well funded. You're going to have to see more paid media come into these races that help sort of turn the tide. You know, this race reminds me in some ways of the 2012 Republican race in which Mitt Romney was kind of a soft frontrunner the whole time, and there were certain candidates that would rise up and try to challenge him and then would fall off. And what Romney and his allies were able to do was essentially outspend everyone, particularly through a super PAC that was supporting Romney, and he kind of played whack-a-mole to knock down these various candidates. Is Biden, as the soft frontrunner, going to be able to do that? He hasn't been particularly well-funded himself. It seems like there's an effort to start a super PAC on Biden's behalf. Perhaps that could be well-funded and could help him in some of these states kind of swat down his rivals. And, you know, maintain that, again, soft front-running position that he's held for the bulk of this race.
Kyle, how many tickets are there out of Iowa as a practical matter, do you think?
I think there may be more than you might think historically, in part because Iowa and New Hampshire are both extremely white states, and the Democratic electorate more broadly is much more diverse. And so someone like Joe Biden, who is so reliant on support from non-white voters, specifically African Americans, he may have more staying power than maybe a frontrunner otherwise would, just because the demographics of Iowa and New Hampshire are so poor for him, but then later contests are a little bit better. But, you know, it's still taking a while to kind of figure out this field. And so I think that there are going to be, you know, I think it's more than two, more than three, and maybe still like 4 or 5, particularly if you have someone like Amy Klobuchar, for instance, or Buttigieg, as he's doing now, really perform well. And again, also if there is a split decision in Iowa and New Hampshire, and if Iowa and New Hampshire both vote for the same person, that person may be in a good position, whereas if they produce kind of muddy results, that allows more candidates to kind of hang around.
Okay, Kyle, great to have you with us, as always. Thanks so much to Kyle Kondik of Sabato's Crystal Ball, coming to us from Washington. Still ahead here, Henry Kissinger says we're in the foothills, as he calls it, of a Cold War between the United States and China, which could be even worse than the one between the United States and the Soviet Union. We hear from Dr. Kissinger. That's next. This is Balance of Power on Bloomberg Television and on radio.
Why is delivering the best client experience a top priority at BNY Mellon's Pershing? Michelle Feinstein, Director of Client Engagement, explains.
Today's investors want a financial relationship that's on demand, customized, and leverages the latest digital technology. At BNY Mellon's Pershing, helping advisory firms and broker-dealers create great experiences for their clients is our priority. Through our integrated wealth experience, we give you a high-touch service, flexible technology choices, and expert insights, so you can deliver a highly personalized experience to your clients at every step, from onboarding to wealth planning, to performance analysis and more. And because we're part of BNY Mellon, you'll benefit from more than 230 years of strength and stability. At Pershing, we're personally invested in your success.
Visit Pershing.com to learn more about Pershing's integrated wealth experience. Pershing LLC and Pershing Advisor Solutions LLC are both members of FINRA and SIPC.
Okay, kids, Dad's gonna teach you how to dance. First, spread your feet apart. Then, pump your knee, nod your head, shake your hips, and bite your lip ever so slightly. Now, with one hand in the air, point at people with the other hand. I call that the rock star.
Dance like a dad. It's a great way to make a moment with your kids.
Now, make a face like it just smells something bad.
Visit fatherhood.gov. Brought to you by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services and the Ad Council.
You don't usually find the titans of finance, business, and politics sitting around together.
There's been this transfer of royal power and royal prerogative.
But amazingly, they're nearly all here every weekday.
Let's talk about their data. What are you looking for?
Bloomberg Surveillance with Tom Keene and Jonathan Farrow.
So where does the circuit breaker come from?
Weekday mornings at 7 Eastern.
He's got to respond, doesn't he?
On Bloomberg Radio, the Bloomberg Business app, and BloombergRadio.com. Bloomberg, the world is listening.
This is Balance of Power on Bloomberg Television and Radio. I'm David Weston. Dr. Henry Kissinger was the man who went secretly to China in the 1970s to pave the way for President Nixon to reopen relations between the United States and China. But at the Bloomberg New Economy Forum in Beijing overnight, Kissinger warned that we may be seeing the start of a new Cold War between the two countries after 40 years of increasingly strong relations.
China and the United States are countries of a magnitude exceeding that of the Soviet Union and America. The Soviet Union was not an economically significant country. We had no economic relations to speak of with the Soviet Union at all. And the Soviet Union did not appear on the international scene as a major economic country. China is a major economic country, and so are we. And so we are bound to step on each other's toes. The United States, through its history, saw Hong Kong as a relatively minor issue. So now when a series of dramatic events are unfolding, each side is bound to be influenced by its historical perception. And the United States is undergoing an election at the moment. So what the people emotionally understand is a very dominant factor. I hope that the issue will be settled by negotiation.
That was part of the conversation with Dr. Henry Kissinger at the Bloomberg New Economy Forum. And a reminder now that the New Economy Forum is organized by Bloomberg Media Group. That's a division of Bloomberg LP, the parent company of Bloomberg News. It's time now for the stock of the hour. Macy's is one of the biggest laggards in today's session. The stock is dropping by around 2% now, even though the company says it has been able to mitigate the effect of tariffs. But those third quarter numbers showed us some other possible problems. And Caitlin Lyons is here to tell us on what those problems are.
Yeah, well, it's really interesting because, of course, you think tariffs a problem, especially for apparel retailers, considering about 33% of apparel imports come from China. As we know, those tariffs, a lot of them already have come online. And for Macy's specifically, more than 38% of what they sell is clothing. And so big possible issue. Macy's had previously said it could take as much as 7 cents off of earnings for the full year. But on the call today, executives actually said they were able to mitigate pretty much all of those tariffs. Interesting what they're saying. They're saying in part that they have enough pricing power, that because they have more fashionable items, consumers are willing to spend it. They also pointed to their relationships with some of their suppliers, saying that has been able to mitigate costs. So yeah, maybe they figured that out. But of course, the results also showed us that comp sales are declining. They dropped almost 4%. That was the first time they've dropped in 8 quarters. They also had to cut their full year guidance for both comp sales and also earnings. They now see for the full year comp sales are going to decline between 1% and 1.5%. They previously thought they would rise as much as 1%. So even when you put the tariffs aside, there's clearly still fundamental issues here.
Well, exactly. As you described it, it sounded like things are going pretty well, but not so much. So if that's not a tariff problem, what is really hurting them? And by the way, we have a lot of other retail numbers out as well. How much is this just execution?
I think a lot of it is execution. I mean, one thing they pointed to specifically in regard to e-commerce was that they had a lot of issues with the site as they prepped it for the holiday season. So that weighed on digital sales growth. growth. They didn't see double-digit digital sales growth like we're used to seeing in previous quarters, and as we know, that's becoming more important to retailers. And then, of course, they pointed to things like the weather. Colder weather came later this year. They also said they're seeing some slower traffic in lower-tier malls, also some softer international tourism that they're flagging here. Now, I will say they did sound pretty upbeat going into the holidays, like, oh, yeah, we have that website. They said they're locked and loaded. And so that outlook, I think, actually may be what's lifting the stock off the lows we've seen in the session. But again, with that comp sales weakness we saw this quarter, you have to question just how rosy that picture's looking for the fourth quarter.
It's interesting. We've chuckled from time to time that it's always about the weather when it comes to retail. Now there's a second thing. It's about technology, because you head to Home Depot, for example, said, well, the real problem is we're having more troubles than we thought online. So now it's either the weather or it's tech or it's both.
Right. And it's a catch-22 because you have to have the online technology. You have to make those investments because so much of the retail landscape is shifting toward those online purchases, not so much in stores. So what are they supposed to do?
Okay, Kaylee Lyons, great reporting today. Thank you so much to Kaylee Lyons. Up next, we talk with a mainstay of the Democratic Party and a strong supporter of Vice President Biden about last night's debate. Ed Rendell, former governor of Pennsylvania, will be here. This is Balance of Power. We're on Bloomberg Television and we're on Bloomberg Radio.
This is a Bloomberg Market Minute. The protests in Hong Kong and a congressionally approved bill supporting protesters may be crucial to the trade talks with China. With that in mind, the stock averages are edging lower by about 1/4 to 1/3%. The Dow down 46, the Nasdaq 30, the S&P 6. China's threatened to retaliate for passage of the bill. Investors are watching to see what happens next. What happens next on Wall Street? Charles Schwab is looking to buy one of its biggest rivals, TD Ameritrade. That just weeks after Schwab decided to let customers trade stocks for free. Now it's moving to tighten its grip on the industry. The deal could result in a company worth $5 trillion. WeWork has plenty of work to do to get its finances under control, and it's telling almost 20% of its workforce they won't work. It's announced 2,400 layoffs around the world. Macy's is sparking worries about a weak holiday season. It's cut its profit predictions for the second time this year. I'm Joan Doniger, Bloomberg Radio.
Have you wanted to speak a new language, but you thought it'd be too hard or take too much time? Then go to Babbel.com, download the app, and try it for free. In just 15 minutes a day, you'll be on your way to speaking a new language in just a few weeks. And right now, you can try Babbel for free. Babbel starts out teaching you words and phrases by matching them with pictures. You won't believe how easy the interactive program is. Soon the sentences get a little bigger, and before you know it, you're having simulated conversations voiced by native speakers. And because Babbel is crafted by language experts and uses the spaced repetition method, in just 10 to 15 minutes a day, you'll be speaking the language of your choice with real confidence. With Babbel, you can speak a language. Just go to Babbel.com and start your first lesson in the language of your choice for free. Download the Babbel app or go to Babbel.com and try it for free. That's Babbel.com.
The average time a resume spends on an HR manager's desk is 7 seconds, and most of them are tossed aside. Now imagine if one of those resumes belonged to Yasmin, who was
living in a shelter, juggling 3 jobs. I had to be resilient. That's something that you can't teach.
We rely so much on a resume, yet it could never tell the full story of someone who
had to be independent and take initiative. And that's how I handle every project I get.
Discover new ways to develop great talent at gradsoflife.org. Brought to you by Grads of Life and the Ad Council.
We could call it Bloomberg awesome, but Bloomberg best is accurate and less embarrassing to say.
Analysts are raising questions about rising competition and higher costs.
June Grasso and Ed Baxter.
It is the first company to go public in the space tourism industry.
Bloomberg best.
That was AutoNation CEO Cheryl Miller.
Weekday evenings at 5 Eastern on Bloomberg Radio, the Bloomberg Business app, and BloombergRadio.com. Bloomberg, the world is listening.
From New York, this is Balance of Power on Bloomberg Television and Radio. I'm David Weston. For Bloomberg First Word News, we're going to go down to Mark Crumpton.
David, testifying on day 5 of the impeachment inquiry, the former NSC director for Europe and Russia warned lawmakers not to believe what she described as a fictional narrative. Fiona Hill was referring to allegations that it was Ukraine that interfered in the 2016 U.S. presidential election and not Russia.
In the course of this investigation, I would ask that you please not promote politically driven falsehoods that so clearly advance Russian interests. As Republicans and Democrats have agreed for decades, Ukraine is a valued partner of the United States, and it plays an important role in our national security. And as I told the committee last month, I refuse to be part of an effort to legitimise an alternate narrative that the Ukrainian government is a US adversary and that Ukraine, not Russia, attacked us in 2016.
Hill also testified about raising her concern over Rudy Giuliani's actions on Ukraine with then National Security Advisor John Bolton. President Trump says Eddie Gallagher won't be losing his Navy SEAL designation, but the Navy says he'll have to face a review next month to determine if he should remain on the elite force. Gallagher was acquitted of a murder charge in the stabbing death of an Islamic State militant captive, but he was demoted after a military grand jury convicted him of posing with the corpse while in Iraq in 2017. House Speaker Nancy Pelosi has sent a bill supporting Hong Kong protesters to President Trump's desk. Despite Chinese warnings of retaliation, the president is reportedly expected to sign it. The legislation passed unanimously in the Senate and with support from all but one Republican in the House. Speaker Pelosi acknowledges the move may undermine efforts between Washington and Beijing to strike a trade deal. Brazilian President Jair Bolsonaro says his government is in discussions with Arab leaders to transfer its embassy in Israel from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem. In remarks today, President Bolsonaro called the potential move, quote, symbolic but worth a lot for those who believe in God, end quote. Bolsonaro has previously pledged to move the embassy, but that was put on hold as Brazilian meat exporters feared losing market in the Middle East. Global news 24 hours a day, on air and at TikTok, on Twitter, powered by more than 2,700 journalists and analysts in over 120 countries. I'm Mark Crumpton. This is Bloomberg. David?
Thanks very much, Mark. There was another Democratic debate last night, this one in Atlanta, but one thing that didn't come up was ratification of the USMCA, the proposed successor contract, actually, to NAFTA. That doesn't mean it's not on the minds of some people in Washington, and for that matter, on the minds of farmers and manufacturers across the country whose lives could well be affected. Welcome now Senator Mike Braun. He is a Republican of Indiana. He's coming in today from Capitol Hill. So, Senator, thank you so much for being with us. Where are we on USMCA as far as you can tell? We heard from the speaker just earlier today. She spoke to camera, and she got a question on the subject, and she said, we may not make it this year. She had been saying we'll get it done this year.
You know, that is the one thing about this place. I don't know of anyone other than Speaker Pelosi who's playing kind of political footsie with it that doesn't want to see that across the finish line. Many congressmen in blue states want to see it done because there's a big impact on agriculture, manufacturing. One of the casualties of when things get so politicized, and I think that's a feather in President Trump's cap, and she's either going to want extractions, favors for it, and I think she's probably hedging her bets. How's that going to interplay with the impeachment inquiry?
But we hear there are a number of people, even in her own caucus, particularly some of the freshman congressmen who just got elected, often from red-ish districts, who say, we'd like to get this done so we can go back to our constituents and say, we went to Washington, we got something accomplished.
There's a political cost to it because this should have been done 2 to 3 months ago. And the fact that it's lingering just has that one reason. How do you use it for leverage? Is it good or bad for the impeachment saga, I call it? And sadly, that's where we're at. If that doesn't happen soon, she's going to have some real political cost associated with delaying it.
We're talking with Senator Mike Braun, Republican of Indiana. Let's talk about another subject that you've been involved in, and that is the climate. You have a bipartisan, caucus trying to address climate issues. We heard from the founder of Microsoft, Bill Gates, overnight, basically over in Beijing, saying he doesn't think a carbon tax is doable. Are you interested in that as a possibility, as a way to address climate?
Here's what I'm interested in as a Republican. And Chris Coons, who initiated the idea, had plenty of Democrats lined up. And that's because they always outmaneuver us on identifying the issues. And then their only solutions are more government and bureaucracy. Just like we got rolled on Obamacare, I think it's important that we're part of the conversation. I've been a conservationist my entire life. I've always thought that dovetailed with conservatism. So it was easy for me to be the first Republican. And when you stick your neck out, take a risk, all of a sudden, you got Lisa Murkowski, Mitt Romney, Marco Rubio, Lindsey Graham. We've got a good representation now on an issue that if we're not part of it, we'll get rolled again with something crazy like the Green New Deal. I'm coming at it to use technology, innovation, and something that we can afford and that's practical. Reforestation, conservation methods, even trying to capture carbon so you can look at fossil fuels, because we got a lot of them, but currently when you use them, you put CO2 into the atmosphere. So let's be part of the conversation.
Is the problem with the carbon tax political or is it theoretical? Because theoretically, at least, if you impose a carbon tax, it addresses the economics problem of externalities and allows the marketplace actually to take care of the problem. So the government's not prescribing exactly what people do. They just say, this is how much it costs, you decide.
So it is definitely political, because the big difference between healthcare, which is the other big issue out here, the industry's fighting its own reform every step of the way. They risk having a business partner with Bernie Sanders and Medicare for all. When it comes to climate, the industry and the marquee participants in it are interested in addressing climate issues, including a carbon tax. It would never work in our conference until all the players in the industry said, hey, that is better than regulation, which we've been dealing with, and it does start to put a real cost to it, and you'd have something in place that you could rely on for down the road. But until the industry would say, this is what we want, and across the board, I don't think you'd have our conference interested in it. All of these things need to be on the table of discussion, but practicality, low-hanging fruit, but being part of the conversation are what the important features ought to be out of the gate.
Okay, Senator Braun, that's really helpful and a very helpful answer, direct answer. Thank you. That's Senator Mike Braun. He's Republican of Indiana. Let's turn back now to that Democratic debate that happened in Atlanta. We have Ed Rendell. He served as mayor of Philadelphia, as governor of Pennsylvania, and then as head of the Democratic National Committee. That's during the 2000 presidential race. Welcome now from Philadelphia. So welcome, Governor. It's good to have you back with us. First of all, just give us your overall impression. What happened last night in Atlanta?
Well, I think most of the candidates did pretty well. The winner, if there is a winner, was Amy Klobuchar, who keeps coming up with great one-liners and very logical presentation. But I don't think it'll change much. Kamala Harris had a nice night. Pete Buttigieg, for the first time, was on the receiving side of some incoming, and he wasn't quite as charming as when he was the front runner. But that's to be expected. Joe Biden did fine. He had that one gaffe at the end, but, you know, who cares? On the responses to the questions, he was good. He had an excellent closing. I think he got stronger as the night wore on, which is a good sign. Elizabeth Warren and Bernie did what they always do, solid performances, talking about the progressive mantra on issues and ideology. It was a good debate, but in the aftermath of 9 hours of hearings during the day, I'm not sure how many people watched it or whether it'll change much.
Well, that goes right to my question, which, and I say this in all sincerity, doesn't matter very much anymore. This is the fifth one now. I'm not sure how many people are watching. We've heard a lot from these candidates. Is what goes on in that debate stage, we got another sixth one coming up, is that going to make a real difference, either in whom we select among the Democrats as a candidate or in whom we elect as president?
Well, I think it'll make a difference for sure with the Democrats. There still has to be a winnowing out process. And the question is, who will make the December debate? You notice Cory Booker said at the end that I haven't qualified for the December debate yet, and gave his website. If Cory Booker falls off the charts, will that help Kamala Harris? Maybe. Will it help Deval Patrick, who's getting in late? Maybe. But I don't think last night will change much at all.
So finally, let's talk about Pete Buttigieg. You mentioned him, the mayor, and people thought people would be concentrating on him yesterday. This is Ed Rendell. We're talking with the former governor of Pennsylvania. There was one exchange interesting about Pete Buttigieg and whether he was experienced enough. This is what his response was about his coming from a relatively modest-sized city in the Midwest.
I have the right experience to take on Donald Trump. I get that it's not traditional establishment Washington experience, but I would argue we need something very different right now. In order to defeat this president, we need somebody who can go toe-to-toe, who actually comes from the kinds of communities that he's been appealing to.
How about that, Ed? Who is the best candidate in your view? I know you support Joe Biden, but is he the best person to take it to Donald Trump and appeal to the people Donald Trump would appeal to in 2016, the people in Wisconsin, in Michigan, in Pennsylvania?
Well, you don't have to take my word for it. In every poll after poll in every state, Joe Biden does better against Donald Trump than any of the other candidates. Better than Bernie and Elizabeth, better than Mayor Pete, better than Kamala Harris. It's because in Midwestern states with working class, blue-collar Democrats, that's Joe Biden's wheelhouse, that and African-American voters. He appeals to them. He's one of their own. He came from modest upbringing. He's an excellent candidate for the fall. The only question I have is, can he win the nomination? It's a long, hard fight. There's many ups and downs as we go through the next several months. But if Joe Biden's the nominee, I thought one thing Joe Biden said last night that was particularly telling, and it's an argument I've been making. Donald Trump let us know who he fears most of all the Democrats by asking the Ukraine to give him information or say that they were investigating Joe Biden. He made it clear that Biden's the candidate he fears the most. And I think that's one thing that was established in the debate, and Joe did a good job of ramming that perception home.
Okay, Governor, thank you so much for being with us today. That's former Pennsylvania Governor Ed Rendell. Coming up, we're told that 5G and the Internet of Things will change all of our lives, but they need a growing amount of spectrum if they're going to realize that potential. We talk with a woman who is both an expert on spectrum and in a position to do something about it. She's FCC Commissioner Jessica Rosenworcel. That's coming up next, and this is Balance of Power on Bloomberg Television and Radio.
You're nuts.
'Tis the season to be hunched over your laptop. Not on our watch. In real life, you can fill your senses and your baskets. Feel all the sights, sounds, lols, and OMGs. Wear laughing emojis on actual smiley faces. Battery's running low. Take the kids to Santa's Grotto. In real life, you can find just the right present using the most advanced search engine in the world. Your eyes. We heart in real life. Brent Cross, London. Free parking for all sleighs and cars.
On 3, our unlimited data is actually unlimited, like for reals. That means you can scroll and scroll and scroll through all the Black Friday deals.
Because we have no speed limits, no data caps, and you'll be 5G ready at no extra cost.
Wow, so many savings.
Our Black Friday deals are now on. Save up to £480. Switch to 3, in-store or online. See 3.co.uk/unlimited-data. Savings on selected phones on 24-month contracts. Ends 5th of December. Terms apply.
If you're planning on driving this weekend, expect delays on the A406 North Circular Road. There'll be road closures between Tottenham and Edmonton from 10 p.m. on Friday the 22nd of November to 5 a.m. on Monday the 25th of November, while we carry out essential maintenance and repairs. All roads in the surrounding area will be extremely busy, so please allow more time for your journey and expect delays in the area. Plan ahead and check alternative routes at tfl.gov.uk. To the Mayor of London and TfL, every journey matters.
Going, gone.
Some things just don't hang around. Like a great deal in Tesco Mobile's best ever Black Friday event. Right now you can get the Samsung Galaxy S10 for just $29.99 a month. But this deal ends Sunday 1st of December. Catch it before it's gone. Tesco Mobile's best ever Black Friday event. Tesco Mobile. Every little helps.
Best ever Black Friday based on range of products in promotion was £35.99, now £29.99. Offer ends 1st of December. 36-month credit agreement, rolling monthly usage agreement, subject to status, phase policy applies. See tescomobile.com/terms.
I don't need a Christmas miracle. Just a little wow factor.
Fixing up your kitchen for the festive season? Get to B&Q. We've all you need to impress your guests and Santa, from upgrading your lighting or appliances to choosing new taps like the Xanthi Chrome Effect Mixer Tap for just £70. Bring the magic home with B&Q.
Are you curious what others are listening to on TuneIn? Head to the trending section under Browse to see the most popular stations and podcasts among TuneIn listeners right now. Check it out. You might just discover something new for yourself.
Introducing a new podcast, ESPN Daily. When you want to go beyond your feed, when you want to get inside the score, when you want to get behind the highlight, there's ESPN Daily. Go deeper into the stories of the moment. Get the exclusive access and insider perspective that only ESPN can give you. ESPN Daily, hosted by me, Mina Kimes. Listen now to ESPN Daily on TuneIn.
Into the end zone, touchdown.
NFL fans, hear every live game on TuneIn Premium.
He runs inside. He's got a 10, 5, touchdown.
Today, hear the home and away call as the Indianapolis Colts visit the Houston Texans at 8:20 p.m. Eastern.
Firing, caught, 10, 5, touchdown.
At home or on the go, hear the home and away call of every NFL game this season on TuneIn Premium. Upgrade today.
Slam dunk.
The NBA is on TuneIn Premium. Each week, TuneIn picks an NBA game you just can't miss. James Harden and the Houston Rockets are in LA to take on Kawhi Leonard and the Clippers.
Harden pulls back, trying to make it 11-2. Kawhi Leonard is all over the place.
This Friday, the Houston Rockets are at the LA Clippers. Tip-off is at 8:30 p.m. Eastern. Search NBA on TuneIn to follow your favorite NBA team today.
From ESPN and the award-winning producers of The Sterling Affairs comes the latest season of 30 for 30 podcasts. 4 brand new stories of espionage.
He wanted this team to be the Barcelona of women's basketball.
Resilience.
I started to scream. I tried to get away.
Corruption.
It's the culture of win at all costs.
And rebirth.
How will we ever rebuild it?
30 for 30 podcasts, season 6. Listen and favorite 30 for 30 podcasts on TuneIn.
This is not a commercial. This is a reminder. With TuneIn Premium, you could be listening to more music commercial-free. Get over 45 commercial-free music stations. Visit TuneIn.com/premium to upgrade.
When you're not listening to your team, take it to the end zone, the rim, or the net. Keep up with the biggest moments in sports by following TuneIn on social media.
Block, Cook into the end zone for the touchdown.
From reminders of the live top games to tips of the best sports stations and podcasts.
Welcome to Undisputed. We are live from Los Angeles. I'm Jenny Taft here with Skip Bayless.
Follow at TuneIn on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram to get the most out of TuneIn.
And we may have, in fact, offered so much of those airwaves to satellite services that they could return some of them now and make them available for new terrestrial uses for wireless. And that's what's at issue here. What's the best way to make that happen? For a while, the FCC was exploring a private sale of those airwaves. But increasingly, it has started to look legally complicated, hard to do, and Capitol Hill has been involved and suggested that we should do this through a public auction. As a result, the FCC chairman has announced that he would prefer a public auction next year, and we are going to work with folks on Capitol Hill to see if we can do just that.
Okay, turn to one other dispute that came up within the last 2 or 3 weeks, and that's the 6 gigahertz dispute, as I understand it, which appears to be Wi-Fi on the one hand, companies like Broadcom on the one hand, versus utilities who say they really need that spectrum for emergency communication. What is that dispute about?
Yeah. You know, our airwaves, again, are getting complicated. And when you have an existing use and you propose new uses, there tends to be some friction. And you're seeing that here. Unlicensed spectrum or Wi-Fi is a really important part of our economy. So we're looking for places to grow Wi-Fi. And the 6 gigahertz band is definitely one of the places we'd like to do it because it's adjacent to existing unlicensed spectrum used for Wi-Fi. There are, however, utilities that rely on that band. So we're going to have to figure out how we might be able to do both more unlicensed and Wi-Fi, along with protect those utility activities from unreasonable interference. So the FCC started a proceeding on that, but it is admittedly a heated one. We're still having discussions about it. And we're also looking at other places for Wi-Fi to go, including the 5.9 gigahertz band, which is just nearby.
We're talking with FCC Commissioner Jessica Rosenworcel. Give us a sense about the extent to which partisan politics enters into this. We have both Republicans and Democrats who are commissioners on the FCC. President Trump has said it is a priority for the country to go into 5G. How much of this is a Republican-Democrat issue? How much of it is the Republicans and Democrats basically united on the goal of advancing 5G as fast as we can?
Oh, I think you've got it. We're united on the goal. We want the United States to lead when it comes to this next generation of wireless technology. But I think when it comes to tactics, we might differ. I'm the senior Democrat at the agency, and I think when I look at the administration right now, we don't have a master plan for 5G service. And in fact, you saw leadership from the Senate
write the National Security Advisor in the White House just this week and say, we need a master plan when it comes to 5G. We don't have one. We've got the FCC fighting with the Department of Commerce over airwaves, fighting with the Department of Transportation over airwaves, and we've got the president tweeting out that he's asked Tim Cook for assistance with 5G. This is not a master plan, and we need one. Other economies around the world are making strides, and we don't want to fall behind.
So what are the prospects for that? So-called czar, as they call them in Washington, a czar for 5G. Yeah. There's been calls, for example, on election security. We should have a czar for that. But is there any prospect that we actually would get someone who would centralize this, bring all the different agencies and constituents together, and have a master plan for 5G?
Well, that sounds like a good idea to me. I certainly hope we do that. I think we need a master plan when it comes to thinking about 5G technology and artificial intelligence. Other big countries around the world have them. We don't. And the United States is at serious risk of falling behind in this next digital revolution. And I think some long-term planning is a good place to start.
Okay, many thanks to FCC Commissioner Jessica Rosenworcel. We're going to have more with the Commissioner in our second hour on Bloomberg Radio, including a discussion of Huawei. This is Balance of Power on Bloomberg Television and on radio.
They're excited by business changes.
Are you finding